get out of this and let's get started. Put on our intro music and prepare up to begin. Alright, so let us save our updates. Where's my pen? Okay, welcome, one and all. TikTok police, lawful, welcome. Kim, lawful, welcome. What is this? Right. Yeah, it is that time of the week again, and we are setting up, we're getting ready, and we're going to get started in just a minute, a few minutes. Alright, so the draft is now updated. So for those who want to proceed alongside what we're doing, you can certainly grab your copy of the current draft. And we're going to talk about some related matters. You know, I have dropped so many gems. I have explained so much. I have given so much remedy that others can possibly use, and people are still asking me for more. So, we're going to continue to deep dive into the law, or what is currently being enforced as the law, and talk about some other questions that can possibly aid and assist us on our quest for justice, right? That is ultimately what we're looking for, right? Peace, to be left alone, and justice. That is the ultimate goal. Sometimes being left alone requires a challenge. It requires a fight. It requires overcoming sometimes foolishness, right? But at the end of the day, if you are alive, if we are alive, we get to fight another day, or to learn for another day. So that is part of what we're doing here. We are learning. And as I always tell everyone, I am a student as well. Just because I know several aspects of the law, that doesn't mean that I know it all, right? But if you're going to join the discussion, we always encourage those who want to join the discussion to come with facts, come with evidence, come with something that we can all experience. Everybody can verify for themselves. This is why whenever I come live, I put the laws on the screen. I show you how I get to them. I show you where I get my train of thought and my line of thinking from. So that is where our foundation starts. If you cannot point to a law, you cannot point to the evidence, you cannot point to any facts, then it don't make sense you really come over here so with the opinions, because we not work off of opinions over here. So King Kong, lawful, welcome. So Scorpion King. Oh God, lawful, welcome. You want to come up before we get started? Or you want to wait until we go through the draft? Damien, lawful, welcome. Yeah, we can. Alright, let's address it early. So that Scorpion, lawful, evening.
Yeah. You know, so what they are tone with you know.
Hold on.
Right at the turn this so anyway.
Turn down that in the background, I get an echo.
Let me see. Hold on,
Justin,
I'm gonna try to find
lawful,
some.
welcome.
Watch out. I'm gonna find some with less nice. I'm being nice till then I'm gonna replace with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Alright, you hear me now?
Yeah, man.
Alright, so what do you there South Parade at town, you know? Right at the light. You know what I'm saying? I'm baby mother. Step out for me, so I have to stop and stop when I stop at the pedestrian crossing, I have to stop on. So the police see me same time and the police see what going on, you know. You know, so the policeman pull me over and say he see me stop at the pedestrian crossing. So I said, brother, it's just a hard time you want to give me, man. Why you want to give me a hard time? I see me actually I saved the motorist. You remember motorist. I saved the pedestrian from actually where I would have end up going to prison anyway, because I see them and lick them down.
Right.
Man say no business with that. He might give me a ticket fee. He said, if me go to court and explain this to the judge with evidence, you think that the ticket are going to stand up? Him say that's not for him business. He want to search my car. I say, no, you can't search my car. Me can't disobey a lawful order. I say, alright. It's a lawful order, him say, I say, alright, show me in the constitution. Take out your phone and show me. Use your phone, me not use my one. You see me say, show me where that is a lawful order. As a matter of fact, I go as far as say, you can't see me a travel on the road randomly and pull me over and decide to say you want to see my papers. You can't even do that either. Right. So I say, you have to give me an explanation as to why you pull me over, and if it don't make no sense, me and you probably would end up front of the judge.
Right.
And him go on. Then me see one female officer walk out from behind one little vehicle when they have the like, you know the little bus that like where transport authority people they have.
Yeah.
One of them see she walk out from behind and I don't know what she whispered to him and I said to him, but the body language that him a give off. I show me say is either him a try to create an impression upon her or the two of them in a things and he want to prove something.
Right.
Some day they hackle with him and I say, bro, once persecution involved, me and you are going up a court. There's no two way about it. So me I say?
Right.
And in the day and him intimidate me and I say, here we go. See, since that way there I go, I go warn you from no, I go warn you from right so. You see everything where I say to me, it is being recorded. You can't record the police and be ready. I say, look here, you are a public servant. You are conducting your duties for me. Right? And because you're conducting your duties for me, I am your boss and I have all the right to record you. As long as you have any government clothes, you have all right to record you.
Right.
I don't know when go say to her, I don't know what she say back to him and him come back and say, alright driver, have a nice day. So I just drive off and left him there. And it look like she can't one side to argue with him because I watch them in the mirror.
Yeah.
You see me? And same time you come to mind, I say, Bumba, I know say one of my general video, I watch and see this thing. Are you make me start read up with something them, you know, because I never used to read them up, you know, me used to be around and police are dealing me so weird, you see me?
Right.
I start go through the thing, then I start read some things, and I say, oh, John, as much right me have, I didn't even realize. You see me? And then I say, all right, the dash cam is needed. The dash cam is really needed. And
100%.
when I really press it to forget it, I want to tell them to spend $200 US and buy it. So I say, and the
Yeah.
reason why I do it, remember the video at the time with the youth. Remember the youth them na they ask you, with the police magazine drop out na them car.
Yeah.
That even more make me want it, car. You see my work require me to travel all hours of the day.
Yeah.
You see me? Day and night me travel. So I say, you know what, me not take no chance with them police, you know.
Right. Yo, are the best move
That's
that
why
me do,
them
trust
man,
me.
I tell you, bro. Trust me, every time I get a little chance, if me no go up and chat GPT and listen to things, I go read two things, you see me? So
Yeah,
I do the
man.
thing, man. I mean, I tell you, it help me, man.
100%.
You see
Listen,
me?
it can't harm
Even,
you.
even, um, even the labor laws, me go in and me start read and me start listen to some things and me start raise with the chat GPT series. Cause if you don't even want to read, if you don't have the patience to read, you can make chat GPT search them up for you and tell you them.
Exactly.
You see me? Yeah, cause we tell you them it not give nothing when not accurate. You see
Right.
me?
Well,
Time
me
I
not
go
go.
in a workplace and I realize something. Yeah. Some things happening at the workplace where I look upon it and I say, John, well, them people are big for a lawsuit sometimes. But I just trying to meet it happen to.
Right.
You see me?
Yeah.
And because of that now, I find that people not really, people them not really take no chance with me so easy again.
I smell the rat. I smell the rat, man.
You see me? Them not really take no
You there?
chance to make a
The connection,
panic upset. So they left off one little piece. And when they left off the little piece now, they might argue me about full uniform and I say, alright, no problem. You know me over do. Me I go wear everything where you give me come and work. I say the piece where you not give me, me I go substitute that. But me not work. Until you give me your uniform you're supposed to finish give me. Right?
Right.
They want to argue with me and tell me about what? Me can't sign on in my duty if me don't come in a complete uniform, but me say you don't give me any complete uniform. And me
Right.
return up at work every day. And if me can't sign, that means I abandon my job, which means say that wrongfully terminate me, which means that is a lawsuit again.
Right.
So I say, so you have to decide if you want the company lose money or you want to just allow me make me do what I do until you give me my uniform because I done the that gear apply already and now you come and bully me.
Yeah, cause you know them want to keep them authority.
Yeah. You see me? And furthermore, you come here and you bad me up and I'm not even your shift yet. You see me? But even worse, and your shift yet. Your shift are like the next 8 hours from now and you're there so on the people them job, on the people them time. I try to do the other person work and the other person is here and they are not complaining because the work is being done. So what is your problem?
Sometimes some people want to just show them little authority, you know?
That is it. So when everything done now, when everything go along now, me I say, listen. One time you was on the same level as us. Not
Yo,
because I get one pen and clipboard, man.
copy and your connection
Like signal.
a chip out. Connection shaky, brother. Alright. I'll get back to Scorpion in a minute. But in connection not stable at all. But me glad say people out there will actually take what I am saying serious and them a do them own research, them a learn upon them own, them a put things into motion and stop just take things just because you're used to something, that no means you have to just take it. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of critical thinking. And again, I'm not tell nobody if you do nothing, right? But if you have the knowledge and you want to exercise your rights, because again, if you don't exercise your rights, you don't really have none. Your rights have to be activated at a time. So if you don't exercise or activate your rights, then everybody will trample over it. Anybody who have little bit of authority, just little bit, they might go want to walk all over you. So at the end of the day, people, some people find it entertaining, some people find it interesting, and some people find it to be useful. They take the information, them research it themselves, them go find the documents, them internalize the information, and them use it. Them take notes, and them assert them right, and then move forward. When you assert your right, you don't have to fight with nobody. When somebody will tell you a lie, how you going to know if you never go look up what you're supposed to know? You see, some people hear we are talking and the conversation sound interesting, right? And you say, yo, me never know that, but them still not going to look it up. Still not going to look up what exactly it is where I cause them problem. Yeah, Scorpion, Scorpio King. Yeah, the connection did a drop, so maybe I have to take it down. Yeah, man. But yeah, man, thank you for sharing. I'm glad to say, the information and the knowledge get transformed into an alchemized manner so that you can make it useful to yourself. So big up yourself and thanks for sharing that. Because a lot of people, like me say, a lot of people are using the information, they are getting value out of the information that I share, and also some people are finding it interesting where they are doing their own research. They might not use it yet, but they are actually putting things in motion so that just in case anything happens, they know how to proceed. So, that being said, right? That being said, before we go over constitutional draft today, actually, you know something? Maybe we should just go through our constitutional draft first, and then we're going to touch on some of the other topics, right? So that way, we can see the updates, say, yeah, the draft is not done yet, so, you can over say, everything is not going to be fully in place just yet. Let me update this browser, and then we're going to get started. So, let's see what's at the very end. Which one is this? So, alright, so this is not the correct one. So let's pull up the right one. Matter of fact, let us go all the way to the front. Alright, so for those who are new to the lives, Sobek, Lawful, greetings. Yeah, man, I'm on Telegram. You can find the Telegram info on my profile page on TikTok. Yeah, man. So, let us get to our constitutional draft. All right. So, fully level vibes, Lawful, greetings, welcome. So we're going to resume constitutional drafting. And for those who would like to follow along, you go to voiceofjamaica.com. That is the website, voiceofjamaica.com. And once you are here, you scroll down, and the first post you'll notice says New Constitution, right? So that's what we're going to click on. And from here, we have the Constitutional Draft PDF edition. And that's what we're going to be working from today. All right. So we have a few new sections that we're going to go over. let's go down to, so the last time we were here, we went over the civil process. The civil process, this is what, labor law, hold on. Which one is this? Dispute resolution. So there are a few sections that were updated. This is one of them, right? The dispute resolution non-court systems. So, you know, the courtroom procedure is a process, right? It's going to take a few months to complete. However, you know, there are alternative systems that, you know, that would be established, right? Yep, attaining the mastery of being a student. 100%. 100%. Yeah, so dispute resolution outside of court can be very speedy, and in many ways, it might work out to your benefit quicker, you know, if people can sit down and have a civilized discussion and come to a resolution, you know, with a mediator, of course, because sometimes people don't trust people, right, when they get into business. So, the dispute resolution non-court systems are basically arbitration and mediation type organizations, right? So these would be private organizations, or, you know, they can be, you know, at least one mandated avenue, like a community resolution institution that allows individuals and, you know, those who have businesses and whatever to seek, you know, some kind of resolution from a more direct, I guess you can say, direct venue than to be going through the court process of, you know, serving, waiting, you know, submitting evidence and all that something. You still have to do much of that with these mechanisms, but it is much shorter and, of course, much cheaper than using an attorney in many cases, right? Even though you can still use an attorney in these manners. But, you know, the language here has been updated, you know, so that it includes more deeper language to suffice for just about all civil issues, right? Time and measurement. It's this one, protection of property. So we went over this before, you know, land and property and how it would be protected. What was this? Civil procedure and administration of justice. We went over this one as well. And then we have the civil procedure manual. You see, it's a little bit unformatted. But the civil procedure manual has also been updated to include some additional language. And this is where we're going to start today. This is page 205 internally in the document. So, the civil procedure exists to resolve disputes fairly, openly, and without unnecessary delay, nor excessive requirements in a predictable and consistent manner. Right? All civil matters shall be governed by written law, verified facts. See if we can zoom in a little bit. I don't know if we can get everything on screen. Yeah. Yeah, written law, verified facts, open evidence, recorded proceeding, and equal access to justice. All right. And we talk about the start of the claim, right? Where the civil matter begins when a claimant or a plaintiff files a written complaint with the proper court, you know, and you have specific details that must be in your documents. And this serves a dual purpose, right? So as you submit a claim to the court is going to enter your information into the national record, the court registry record database. And that way, right, if you have another case later on, it is easier to serve you by e-file or by e-service, right? And that becomes a mandatory thing. So even though you're going to be served by address, by physical mail, right, the presence of an email address will automatically grant the court another means of getting documents to you or rulings or orders to you and so forth. And each party who enters the court. So, it can be an easier process rather than us relying upon physical delivery and all of them something there, right? So, name, address, phone number, email, facts relied upon, law relied upon, harm or loss alleged, remedy requested. So, of course, what is it that you want the court to do? That would be the remedy you're requesting, for those who don't know. And supporting affidavit, right? Every case have to have a supporting affidavit. If you don't have this, where you can basically state everything under penalty of perjury or other penalty, then your case cannot be lodged, because if you lie to the court, there has to be a penalty, right? If you bring a case knowing that the case don't have no prospect of being the truth or prevailing, truthfully, then you also face penalty as a mandatory action, right? So once the required document elements are met, the clerk or deputy clerk shall take and cause to be filed the commencement document. So once all your document them in place, the clerk has to just take it and file it. They're not supposed to be a roadblock to the access of the court. Then literally, the clerk's power is going to be very limited, and it is going to be enforced strictly. Police them bex now. You think them bex yet? Hold on. Court filing. The court shall receive the claim, assign a permanent case record number, which is going to be, the acronym CRN. The court is going to enter the filing into the court registry public record, issue a certified notice of summons to the plaintiff for service upon the defendant, right? So currently, we're going to piggyback off of what everyone already knows. Once you get a summons, you have to serve it on the defendant, right? Once service on the defendant is complete, everything proceeds through electronic filing, right? No filing fee shall be charged for public court services, right? So again, we did go over quite of this before, but some additional language were added. For example, no judgment shall be entered without verified service unless the time for service has expired and no other remedy at law exists but to dismiss the case for failure to bind the defendant or the respondent by completed or perfected service. So, if you can't serve somebody or they cannot be found, the case should not be sitting there in the court pending. It is going to be dismissed, right? You're going to have to come back at a later time and bring back, start over the process again when you can find the defendant, right? And, the requirements for the response, initial review. So once service is perfected and filed into the case. So, for example, if you use a courier service and someone was served and you have evidence of that, you send it to the court, right? And then the court is going to determine different elements of territorial jurisdiction, subject matter and personal jurisdiction, service was completed, the claim states a lawful issue, and whether emergency relief is requested. So once the court reviews this, right, then if the claim is defective, the court shall provide a written directive issued to the party who should remedy the defect within 21 days and not more than 60 days. If no defects are found, the court shall promptly schedule a pre-trial hearing, right? So all of these are now time specific. We're not leaving it up to the mechanics of the court to come determine when them want to schedule a case and all of that. Now we have definite time that we can say, okay, everybody knows this are the time for this, these are the maximum days, these are the maximum time, etc., etc. You don't have to be guessing and asking, what would be the relevant time to get something done. All right. Disclosure of evidence, pre-trial conference. So just some additional language added to this. We're not going to go fully through it because it is literally a step-by-step process, right? This is why it's called the Civil Procedure Manual. Civil Procedure Manual, right? So just about all civil cases, they're going to go through the same process, right? Then we have, oh, here's a section we add remedies, right? At the conclusion of the hearing or trial, the court shall be permitted to award or issue civil remedies individually or collectively, right? Which include any of these. This is what the court is authorized to do. So they can come up with their own common law and based on prior rulings and so forth. They have to stick to what is in the written law, right? Enforcement have to point out, what is required, who must act, the effective date of enforcement, deadline for compliance, and lawful enforcement method, right? Appeal, the same thing. And then we have the civil appeals procedure, right? Similar language as well, but shortened because appeals are strictly based on what was argued at the trial level or the parish court, right? And actually, this is a pretty long section. Oh, where it talks about family matters and so forth, void orders, etc. Equity procedure, family matters. Okay, so family matters, right? Family matters were also updated. Now, in our current system or in our current system of law, the court has an enormous amount of power as it concerns families. And it is very unusual because when we talk about matters related to children specifically, the court has a standard worldwide that they all of them try to be on the same page, where they're calling it the best interest of the child. And if you ask the parents, both sides, whether it want to be the man or the woman, right? You can clearly, from what is described, you can clearly see that it is an uneven distribution of parenting time. Always. Once you have a dispute, the court is almost always going to grant the mother more time unless the father have a good attorney or the father, has some heavy laws proceeding within the case. Right? So this would replace that I call it foolishness, because there is no way you have a so-called family court judge that is determining a matter and it is solely based on their own discretion. Like that don't make no form of sense to me. And they don't have any mandatory procedures either. Them simply listen to both sides and they come up with what they feel is best, not necessarily based on the child's need. Right? So the purpose of a family procedure exists to resolve family disputes while protecting dignity, stability, and the welfare of children. The covered matters include custody, parenting time, support, family property, protection from harm, guardianship, and family obligations. Again, this was another one that was extended to include other scenarios. Filing a family claim. A family claim begins by written petition. Now, if you notice, it's a written petition because family matters are typically never closed. Unless the child becomes an adult or emancipated where they are taking care of themselves, the parents can always have a family dynamic that changes. So a family case is never closed until the child ceases to continue being a child. All right? So that's why it is a petition. It is something to change what is there, but it is not necessarily to replace it. It's just to change what is currently in place. Right? So you need a written petition stating the parties, the child or family member affected. So again, family matters can include someone who you're taking care of, not necessarily a child. Right? The facts that you're going to allege, the relief you're requesting, and any urgent concerns, if any. So you have notice and service. And here is a provision that also protects the family. Right? No family order shall issue without notice unless immediate harm is proven by evidence. A lot of times people go to court and they complain and they have nothing. And sometimes the court will award them temporary relief. And then you have to go through a whole long, lengthy process to reverse that. which is very unfair. So if evidence cannot be presented, then the court doesn't have any authority to be issuing an order on short notice or in an emergency. All right, has to be evidence. The temporary orders shall be issued only where necessary, and they must state the facts relied upon, reference any evidence reviewed, state the law applied, be limited in duration, and be promptly reviewed. Right? So it's just like, if somebody is in immediate danger, and again, just because somebody says something, you cannot just write an order because it sounds urgent. You have to have facts and evidence. Right? So if the police need to be sent out for that, they send out the police, right, to keep the peace and then see what evidence exists. Right? So, yeah, we need some protection there in the family matters. Right? Custody and parenting time. Both parents begin with equal standing. Minimum parenting time shall not fall below 40% unless clear evidence proves risk of harm, inability to provide safe care, harm, or neglect. Again, very uneven distribution of parenting time. Those of you who have been to family court or know anyone who has gone through family court, the distribution of parenting time is often drastically unequal, right? So here we have something encoded in law, right? It shall not fall below 40%. We cannot have one parent dictating how a child is raised, especially if it's not the father, if the father is stable. Again, if the father is stable. Remember, we have all of these factors that need to be met. So if there is no risk of harm, if there is no evidence of inability to provide safe care, no harm itself, and no neglect that is, evident, then we should not be tearing families apart and in many cases, separating the fathers from their children. Unless, of course, the father gives up his parental right and say him no want to raise no picnic, then again, that is a dynamic that would have to be, deliberated in court or presented to the court, right? Evidence in family matters. Family decisions shall be based on direct evidence, records, testimony, verified conduct, affidavits sworn or affirmed to under penalty of perjury, and if the child is 10 years old or older, the child shall be interviewed by at least 2 judges in chambers and recorded to assess the child's view or perception on the child's safety or concerns, the child's basic needs, food, clothing, and shelter. So these are the questions, these are the circumstances the court supposed to be looking into, right? Family connection and time with the child's siblings, if any, the child's preference of parent and why, the child's education performance and reason for any degradation, any manipulation of the child's reasoning or testimony, like if a parent is telling them to say something or to lie or to make up story, the child's connection with extended family, the child's extracurricular activities, the child's aspiration and goals if the child has any, and the child's general happiness, right? Many times, these decisions are made and the child is not involved in the court settings. And I really cannot see any fairness in that, especially if the child is intelligent enough to tell the truth and to express themselves. And usually, between the ages of 8 to 11, the child is mature enough to can form a basic opinion about themselves. So, at least, we set a threshold here where if the child reaches 10 years old, the court must consider the opinion and the testimony of the child in chambers, right? So instead of everybody there where the child might feel intimidated, the child is isolated into an area so that the child can feel more safe and open to speaking about whatever might be bothering them or whatever might be a problem, right? Assumptions, bias, or generalized belief unsupported by the record shall not determine outcome, right? So now we also set another precedence here where anything the court come up with, it has to be supported by the record, It has to be something that was discussed in the court and the court come to a finding so that you don't have, unsubstantiated things being ruled on unnecessarily. Child welfare. The court shall consider the safety, stability, continuity, relationship with each parent, and proven caregiving ability. All right. Support shall be based on actual need. We don't currently have this. Currently, we have the courts in many cases making determinations on the parent's income, which is absolutely not fair. The point of child support is for the child. So if the child needs, one pair of clothes, every 6 weeks or every 2 months, right? One pair of shoes every 6 months. If the child need X, Y, and Z, as long as the parent is in the child's life, there is no way support of the child should be based on anybody's income. Income has nothing to do with it. It is the need of the child, right? The child need uniform, the child need food, the child need this, the child need that. One parent cannot be the sole breadwinner, especially if they are not living in the same household. That is a gross disparity, right? Support shall be also based on proven ability. Sometimes the courts don't even consider the expenses of the parent who needs to pay support. Then just tell us you have to pay this amount and you're stuck. Because if you don't pay the court order, now you have a possibility of getting a warrant out for your, like a bench warrant or something, to end up back in court, to answer to the court as to why you are not following the court order, right? Support shall also be based on the child's welfare, and it shall be fair contribution and ability to provide needed support. So, the factors surrounding someone's life should always be a considerating factor when also determining support, because how are you going to live a normal life if 70% of your earnings is being distributed for so-called support? And yet still the child cannot even buy anything for themselves. They don't even know that money is being dispersed for their care. Sometimes the other parent just squander the money and do what they want. But anyways, so this creates a more solid basis upon which the court must make their decision, right? Family hearings. Hearings shall be recorded. As with everything that we've been talking about, we need recordings everywhere. Any kind of governmental office, any kind of public service office, recordings must exist. No going around it. Because if we don't have evidence, if we don't have a track record where we can go and look and see and document and use as evidence, how are we going to have fairness and justice? So, again, hearing shall be recorded. Right? Privacy may protect protect identifying details, but proceedings must remain reviewable. Right? Final family order. A final order must state the facts proven, supporting evidence, law applied, the custody schedule, the support obligation, if any, the reasons for any restriction, and the review terms. All right? So a final order is typically something that comes out of a divorce or something that comes out of a determination of paternity. The final order is not necessarily final. It is just final to the situation that happened between the parents. So that final order must contain these elements, right? And unless an immediate need for emergency relief is sought, no modification petition to the final family order shall be permitted for a minimum of 9 months after the date of the last order. So, if the court makes an order, there has to be a time to allow the family to adjust, right? You can't just go back to court after you just finish going through a whole deliberation of the family matter, right? Because again, the child needs stability. It is the child that is the focus of those situations. So for modification, a family order may be modified only upon proven material change. right? So you have to prove what significance is necessary for you to seek modification. So modification requires a written request, an affidavit sworn or affirmed to, notice, evidence, and a reasoned order. All right. Enforcement. Family orders shall be enforced lawfully and proportionately. Enforcement shall not be used to punish, intimidate, or obstruct parental rights. All right. And I'll update that. So I will have a section on parental rights. All right. Family orders may be appealed for error of law, lack of evidence, procedural unfairness, or unconstitutional restriction on family rights. And then we have the universal rules. Those remain the same. Criminal procedure. Criminal procedure remain the same as well. And Code of Judicial Conduct and Limits of Authority. We've been over this one as well, where we talk about what laws the judges have. How can they exercise their specific authority? They have to apply the law and the interpretation. Now, this is important. Let us go over this section, right? For those who are here and want to comprehend how the law should work. So, source of judicial authority. All judicial authority derives solely from this Constitution and laws enacted under it. No judge shall exercise authority beyond what is expressly provided by law. And by expressly, it means what is written, right? What is written by law. Duty to apply law. Judges shall apply the law as written. Interpretation shall be based on the plain meaning of the text. So that means that they cannot go out and use foreign language like legalese to determine how the document should be read or how it should be interpreted or how it should be used in situations. It has to be the plain meaning, meaning English, right? Clear legislative intent were expressed in the text. So you can't say this is not what was intended or that wasn't what was intended. Once it is written down, that is what is intended, right? Expressed in the text. Judges shall not create, modify, nor extend law, nor the meaning of the text, nor add interpretation that does not exist in the plain reading of the text. So if me and you can read it and the judge will tell us, that is not what it really means, then that is a violation of law, right? The plain meaning of the text is paramount. Prohibition on arbitrary decision making. No decision shall be based on personal belief, policy preference, or subjective discretion. Every decision must be grounded in established law, proven facts, and supporting evidence. Elimination of unbounded discretion. Judicial discretion shall not be exercised except where expressly authorized by statute and limited by clear standard. So again, if they are to use so-called judicial discretion, it has to be specifically stated in the text. Where discretion is permitted, it must be reasoned, it must be consistent, and it must be reviewable. Rejection of unwritten law. Courts shall not rely on unwritten law, custom, or tradition as a source of authority. So we are abolishing common law. We're abolishing the doctrines. We're abolishing all of those unwritten things that everyone else cannot see. Right? It is unfair. And if we're going to have a fair system of law, we cannot have things that are not written down and holding people accountable with that. Right? Common law shall have no force unless codified in statute or expressly incorporated in this Constitution. Right? So again, only what is written can be ruled upon. Requirement of reasoned judgments. Every judicial decision shall state the applicable law, identify the facts and or supporting evidence relied upon, and explain the application of the law to the facts. Conclusions without reasoning are void. Section 7, equality before the law. Judges shall treat all parties equally. No preference shall be given based on status, position, or affiliation. Duty of impartiality. Judges shall remain neutral and independent. A judge shall not favor any party, engage in ex parte influence or nor communication. Now we're going to break this down. What page is this? 240. I'm going to make a note because we don't want language that people don't understand. So we're going to define ex parte. Matter of fact, we're going to replace that. Ex parte. Right? Ex parte means one-sided communication. Right? No one-sided communication. Any conflict of interest shall require recusal. We're going to change this as well. Right? So recusal means you cannot try the case because you have an interest or you have some connection to the case. Any conflict of interest shall require recusal. Conflict of interest includes any affiliation, connection, or relation to the parties or the facts of the case. So any connection to the case, you cannot sit as a judge. Right? Adherence to procedure. Judges shall strictly follow lawful procedures. No judge shall bypass procedural requirements, admit nor consider unlawful evidence, deny a party the right to be heard. Right? Limitation on judicial orders. Orders shall not exceed the claims presented or the authority granted by law. Ultra vires orders are void. And ultra vires means beyond lawful authority. We're gonna take out this language again, because we're used to legalese and we're used to some of these legal terms in our current system, right? We're gonna change them to common and plain English, so nobody has an advantage over anyone. It has to be plain and basic. Where even when the Constitution is being taught in schools, right? The children should be able to see these words and know exactly what they mean. Accountability. Judges are accountable for violations of this Constitution. Violations include acting outside lawful authority, issuing arbitrary decisions, failing to apply the law as written. Violation shall result in one or more penalties, including removal from office, legal liability where applicable, criminal prosecution where any ruling resulted in criminal penalties, and permanent ban from the practice of judicial office. Right? And we're gonna touch on this shortly. Right? Transparency. All judicial proceedings and decisions shall be recorded. All judicial proceedings and decisions shall be recorded. Nowadays we only have the final decision of the court that is recorded. In many cases, we cannot get the case file. We cannot get what the parties submitted, what evidence was actually used. All of that is removed from the case file, that is not useful, especially within a historical context, right? We need to see what was really submitted, because a decision by itself, without any context, we're basically saying that whatever the judge says, that is truly what happened. And, we all know in some cases with public officials, we're not saying anybody is doing anything, but in many cases with public officials, they are not always entirely truthful. Records shall be accurate, accessible for review, and preserved. Right? So all records within the court system should be preserved and ready for review so that we can determine accuracy, not just what somebody tell us. Right? Section 13, review and correction. Judicial decisions shall be subject to review. Any decision found to violate this article shall be reversed, corrected, or declared void. A judgment found to be void may not be saved nor upheld in part by reason of any separation of facts, acts, nor evidence. Which means that if a judgment is void, right, meaning that they didn't have authority or, any of the other factors that caused it to be void in the first place, the entire case has to be thrown out. There's no saving of such a case, right? If anything, the parties would have to be restituted and the case has to be retried. Plain and simple. We cannot save corruption. We have to get rid of corruption in our systems. And we are getting reports. People are reporting live. The gems are coming after this. Oath of office. Every judge shall take an oath and swear to uphold this constitution, apply the law as written, refrain from arbitrary action, maintain respect and dignity of the court and the parties, and rule in confidence of public order and justice. All right. And then we have the principle of this section, which is judicial authority shall ensure strict adherence to law, elimination of arbitrary power, transparency and accountability, and equal justice for all. And then we have a mandatory separation of powers, right? Today's current system of governance is greatly flawed in the sense that we have different arms of government that influence the other arm of government, right? Now, an example of this would be we should have a legislative branch, right, which is currently what we are calling Parliament. We have an executive branch, which should be the law enforcement, right? And we have the judicial branch, which would be the courts and the judges. Now, the legislative branch is only supposed to supposedly make the laws, right? But making law is very limited. And certainly so far, they have exceeded much of that authority. One exceeding of that authority is, when they create certain acts of parliament, it is affecting private lives. It is affecting private rights. It is affecting the private lives of the people, which legislative power should not reach so far. And that legislative power is being exercised by the executive branch, which is the police. For example, in the Constitution, under the Charter, it says we have freedom of movement, right? And we're going to get into this shortly. Freedom of movement does not have any specific way in which you can move about freely. It just says you have freedom of movement. So in any way that you choose to move around freely, you are free to do so. But that being said, we have a great problem. The legislature has created the Road Traffic Act and the Road Traffic Regulations. And the executive branch is saying that they can stop you anytime they want. They don't even have to have suspicion of a crime. They can stop you to check you for documents because the legislative branch says that they can check documents whenever they please, to ensure that you are properly licensed and etc., etc. Now, the interesting thing is, this is a direct influence and a direct power granted from the legislative branch to the executive branch without an activation of the law. And this is happening currently. So, separating the powers between these three branches, it should always mean that it takes some external action in order for this power to become active. But instead, the executive power or the police force is now able to go out on their own, by their own action, and go and institute investigations, arrests, and all of these different things based on what the legislative body wrote in what should have been limited law. Right? Similarly with the judicial branch, when a court order is issued, they can directly tell the police to go do something, which is again not a separation of power. The police is supposed to be independent of these three, right? It should only be by operation of law where the police would be able to exercise their power. But instead, these two directly influence the executive power or the executive branch of the government, right? So that in itself is where we're going to have, or we have had, a lot of trouble, a lot of problems, especially as far as accountability and transparency is concerned. So here we are redefining the separation of powers, because it is, the separation of powers is actually a doctrine today rather than an actual law. So here we are redefining how government is structured, and that separation of power that should exist in all forms of government all over the world. Government authority should be divided into three distinct branches, shall be divided, right? Legislative, executive, and judicial. Each branch shall operate independently within its defined powers. Executive functions. Legislative power shall be limited to creating drafts of rules of law based on public submission, creating rules of public policy based on institutional need. So now, what we've done with the legislative body of government is we would have removed their power to directly make laws, right? Because the lawmaking power rests with the people, not with those who can come up with crafty legal mechanisms, right? So now the legislative power would only exist to function within these two parameters. They can only draft rules of law based on public submission. So we, the people, would have to have a need for them to work. And then if an institution like a hospital or, you know, whatever other institutions in society need policy documents, then they would submit it to the legislative power, who would then draft those rules and deliberate on how it should work and so forth. But the legislative power would not exist on basically a fringe branch on its own, creating things unlimited, right? Executive power shall be limited to implementing and enforcing the law and public policy and administering public affairs. All right, so now we also limit police power to only implementing and enforcing the law and public policy. And the law in this constitution is what is written down. It is not just something that, you know, you are saying, no, this separate legislation say you can do this, or this separate statute say you can do this. No. If it is not written down and you are not exercising your duty, then you have no power there. Right? And judicial power shall be limited to interpreting and applying laws and resolving disputes according to law. Right? And again, law is only within this constitution. No separate document outside of this constitution has the force of law. All right? Prohibition of power overlap. No branch shall exercise the powers or duty of another. Any act performed outside of lawful function of a branch is void. No branch shall influence or interfere with the powers or duty of another. It should be plain and simple, but again, if you don't write it down as a limitation, then that is an exploitable function. Non-delegation of core authority. No branch shall transfer its core constitutional powers to another branch or entity. Delegation of administrative functions must be expressly authorized by law and remain subject to oversight. And when we talk about oversight, right, a lot of times, you know, in our current society, we have all these so-called investigatory and oversight agencies. but they are still answering to the body of government, right? Here, we the people actually would create an oversight body, which would have unlimited power to investigate. So them can go somewhere today and go back the next week, and go back there the next week too. They would have that unlimited oversight power to dig out corruption, right? To find out where we have problems in society, and then, recommend prosecution to our prosecutor body, right? Based on evidence. And that is how, we would enforce this kind of law. Are you saying that this document will eliminate the act statutes approved by Parliament? No, I am not saying that. I am certainly not saying that. Sounds like you have joined in the middle of the conversation. But we will do a review shortly after we go through these sections. Right? So you come up to speed on what exactly this is. Core powers shall not be delegated under any circumstances, right? So any power that is derived from a constitution is not a delegatory power. You can't pass on that power to anyone else under any circumstance or any other body, right? Separation of personnel. No person shall simultaneously hold office in more than one branch. You can't be secretary of, one part of government or the police and also secretary in the court. It doesn't work, right? Any appointment in violation of this section is void. Independence of branches. Each branch shall operate free from control, direction, or interference by another. No branch shall direct the decisions of another or control the internal processes of another. Right? Checks and accountability. Each branch shall be subject to constitutional limits and review. Legislative acts shall be subject to judicial review for compliance with this constitution. Executive actions shall be subject to judicial review for legality, and judicial conduct shall be subject to lawful review and accountability procedures. Right? Prohibition and consolidation of power. This is another great disparity when we talk about separation of power. Sometimes we have different bodies within government working together, but you always have one of them leading or ruling, right? And this has to be limited when we talk about even investigations. No law, rule, policy, or action shall concentrate powers of multiple branches into one body, right? So you can't just join forces and start working together as a complete separate body, right? And no law, rule, policy, or action shall create authority not accountable to this constitution. You see, like right now, we have Parliament who can create a completely separate body that is not answerable under the constitution. It can be private. It basically a private corporation that the people don't even have any insight on, right? So we would eliminate those powers. You can't create an authority. You are created by the constitution as a creature of law, and now you are creating your own thing that is unaccountable? No. Any attempt to consolidate power is unconstitutional and void. Collaboration in stages shall be independent in power and execution of duty. Right? So for example, if the police is working with an investigatory agency, the police would only take over or exercise their power at the specific stage when the law is activated in such a way, or the law would allow them to work in such a way. But they could not directly work together, with another body in parallel, right? Financial independence. Each branch shall have sufficient and independent resources to perform its functions. Funding shall not be used as a means to control over another branch. There shall be no excess funds beyond project estimates each year. All spending, salaries, contractual payments, and other financial obligations shall first be recorded as an expense prior to authorization and distribution of funds. Very plain and simple, and this is how you maintain transparency. Transparency and boundaries. The powers and limits of each branch shall be clearly defined, publicly accessible, and any expansion of authority beyond defined limits is prohibited. Right? So again, this has been in many places, but it has to be clearly stated. You know, if the authority is not listed here, it is prohibited. Plain and simple. Enforcement. Any person or entity within Jamaica may challenge violations of this article. Courts shall declare unlawful acts void, order corrective action, institute appropriate penalties and sanctions for each violation, on its own motion, if not brought forward by a party, recommend investigation and prosecution of suspected or known violations. Right? So here we give the court a specific independent power where evidence exists to support some kind of violation or misconduct. The court can recommend an investigation and prosecution. Officials responsible for violations shall be subject to removal and legal accountability, including criminal prosecution. Right? So again, equality of the law. All immunity is removed from all officials. Principle: separation of powers ensures prevention of tyranny, accountability of government, protection of rights, lawful and balanced governance. Right? And we have qualification, ascension, and certification of public officials. That we are not, we've been over this one before. This is, basic eligibility requirements like educational ability, minimum requirements, and so forth. And also, training. We have to have verified training. We have so many different systems that we have to request access to information for. It should simply be one public record system, right? Then we have a certification of qualification, oath to the people, the form of oath. Here we have an example of the oath, right? Issuance of certificate of office, which again is something that would be publicly available and verifiable. Digital record, public verification. So, if someone in the public wants to go check, they should be able to just look up the record and see. You shouldn't be asking for information. Invalid ascension, we talk about those, any action taken without the authority. Continuing obligation. Public officials shall remain bound by their oath at all times. Violation of the oath shall result in removal from office and legal accountability. All right. Principle. Public office shall require qualification, knowledge of the Constitution, lawful certification, accountability to the people, transparent and verifiable authority. All right. So, now is a good time. We're going to do a quick overview of what we are talking about and why this is important, right? So, what we have here, which is what we're going over, is Jamaica's first constitution. We currently do not have a constitution. So let us pull up documentary evidence to support what we're saying. All right. So here we have our constitution that we know. We currently use it as a constitution, which is the Jamaica Order in Council 1962. Right. As we can see, constitution is in brackets. Just zoom it in. In almost every section of this document, we have the constitution in brackets. And when we have something in brackets, it means that it is not a part of the original text. It is just as a reference, right? So, as we see all through this document, it was not necessary to use a bracket in the normal speak of anything, in the normal text. We don't use brackets just willy-nilly. We typically use brackets as an explanation of what something should be or the context upon which it is used. So the Jamaica Constitution in brackets Order in Council 1962. If it was an actual constitution, it would simply say Jamaica Constitution. But in fact, it is actually an order. It is an order being issued from Britain, right? And how do we even know it's an order? Number one, it talks about specifically orders in council revoked by this order, right? What about the people them that started from a group affiliation with a party? Then a year or two, you see them in parliament. Well, we're not really getting into the whole political thing, right? Because as you know, I don't really talk on politics over here, unless it is related to what we consider to be the law. So here we have the first schedule, right? It talks about orders in council revoked by this order. So the context is very clear. This is not a constitution by any means. These are orders issued. And even though it might mention a constitution, it is simply a framework, right? The complete heading on all the pages is what? Jamaica, in brackets, Constitution, Order in Council 1962. So we have never actually had an actual constitution. All of this is talking about adding and repealing and revoking and reference to other regulations and acts and so forth, right? So what we are doing over here is we are actually creating what should have been done in 1962. This is a creation of Jamaica's first constitution. And it is being created by the input of the people. You know, I am drafting much of it, you know, to start it out. But it is being influenced by the input of the people. What do I mean? Here we have on voiceofjamaica.com, and if you scroll down to the first post that says New Constitution, you'll get to this page, right? And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the submissions that others have made, you know, to contribute to the Constitution, the constitutional draft, right? So as submissions roll in, you know, by email or even here on the live, we add sections to the Constitution to cover different aspects of society that we want to create a law for, right? So this Constitution that we're creating is the first Constitution that has been made by the people of Jamaica, or will be put in force and effect by the people of Jamaica, right? Now you might be asking, why is Jamaica spelled like this? It is deliberate, right? The current name that is used, or the current spelling of this name, is a British trademark. It is a brand name. It is a corporate name. And this is what is used on international markets, on brandings and so forth. So we don't want to infringe on that copyright. So this is our spelling of the name that we're going to use going forward, right? Here we have the table of contents, you know, to include the different sections. And more importantly, we are creating a single body of law. So this Constitution would serve as the sole basis of law for everything within society, right? How do you add to the Constitution? You can add by going to, there are two ways to do it. Let us bring up VOJ. So you go to voiceofjamaica.com. I'm going to walk you through the process. So this is voiceofjamaica.com. Right? You scroll down a little bit, and here we have New Constitution. You click on this. And when you scroll down, you will see the draft. We have the Word version, the PDF edition, and we also have the Declaration of Independence that is still currently a draft. So under here, you can make your submission. So you just put your name, your first name or alias, and you put your suggestion in here, and then you hit submit. And that's one way to do it. Or if you're here on the live and you like to make a suggestion, then you can also make a comment here on the live, and we can either implement it if it is something short, or we want I can write it down and then include it later if it is something that needs extensive writing. I want to add foreign competition in. What does that mean? Foreign competition. So the Constitution would be the single body of law. We would not have these acts of parliament and these regulations and these different things. It would simply be the Constitution, and that is our primary and single source of law. So if it is not written in the Constitution, then it is not law, or it cannot be enforced as law. That's simple, right? So everybody would know exactly what the law is, right? And again, we have much upgraded definitions and declarations in here that would enhance our society. And that's what we've been going over. As you can see, there are many sections in here, but the sections are not very long, right? I want to add fair competition in the marketplace as a part of the Constitution. So you have to be a little bit more specific. You're talking about regulation of the commercial market. Is that what you mean? So in section A6, we have commerce, taxation, and economic structure, right? So let us take a look. Page 59. Let us go back. Page 59. Right? So here we have a section on that. Commerce, taxation, and economic structure. Right? So lawful commerce. Can you add section that protects animals that are taken from the wild and kept as pets? That's a good one. So wild animals as pets. Protection. Okay, that one is noted. So the commerce conversation of regulation of commerce, it is actually in here. So what I would like you to do is, if you can take a look at this section, again, this is page 59 of the draft. You can pull it up on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. And that way, if it is not covered in this section, right, then you can make the suggestion and we can implement it. But I think we have covered that section in here, right? For example, prohibition on speculative system. Financial systems based on speculation against value are prohibited. The following are prohibited: currency speculation, artificial market manipulation, profit derived from destabilization of value, and any such activity is unlawful and void, right? Barrier to entry, making it fair to everyone. Certain regulations are costly and create a barrier. Barrier to entry. All right, click on the box and come up so we can have a discussion on it. So this is a good example moment, because what we're including in here is that it has to be uniform. It has to be fair, generally speaking, right? So everyone either has to benefit or everyone has a fair opportunity to have some kind of benefit from anything that we add to the Constitution. So let's have a chat about it. Yeah,
Hello?
Omalo.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, lawful. Greetings. Welcome.
Yeah, blessings. Yeah. When we talk about fair competition in the market space, you
Mm-hmm.
know that it is really not fair because based on regulations and laws, it creates a type of top heavy where certain people that has the money to pay for these regulations are most of the times are the only one that get access to these privileges to enter the market space. For instance, you would look at like these food processing in Jamaica. Most of
Mm-hmm.
them, you really can't enter the space because of the regulations and all of the money it costs to do these things. We have to create something where the least amongst us have the opportunity to rise from the bottom and go to the top. So what I'm saying is that you would create a fair trade policy where the fairness of this is where money is not the obstacle to give someone leverage over each other, but just obeying the law or obeying the principles of the regulation would give you that opportunity for entry.
Okay. So the question there is, um, the question there would be, for example, if we're talking about, for example, a manufacturing type of environment or type of industry, give me a more concrete example of a barrier to entry.
Most of the time, it would be regulations. Most of the time, it would be all the money and the lawyer fee it would cost to what navigate the regulations. Because most of the times, a small, say for instance, somebody have an idea to say they're going to make, say for instance, some shoes, but all of the regulations and the laws that govern in that aspects of that business the
Mhm.
person maybe and them by themselves cannot navigate those things. But someone with some money could just navigate that by themselves. Yeah, to use their leverage to pay whatever regulations need to be. With what I'm saying is that
Gotcha.
fairness. We have to
Mhm.
find a way how to make fairness in the market space something equal to each and everyone, where the government has no ability or right to create law that disenfranchise someone coming from the bottom. We have to make things like this where government just can't make a law or a policy where these policy favor the elites because the elites are the ones that are paying for their campaign.
Right. Right.
Like,
Okay.
for instance, in the banking sector it is so convoluted and it doesn't give any people coming from a certain leverage any going up the ladder to join the banking sector because it has becomes a cartel.
Right. It is close. It is close.
Yeah. So we have to look at areas like these, almost every areas in Jamaica, where we see because of the lacking of competition, where people have access to entry. These are causing almost like a oligopoly amongst a certain set of people, where it keeps a certain set of people from the barrier to entry. So we have to look at how do we address fairness in competition inside of the market space here in Jamaica.
Right. So, that is an interesting perspective, because one of the things that is also within this draft is, the maintaining of an economic structure, a fair economic structure. And this is something, okay, I see your drop. Um, that is something that is very important when we talk about not only economic stability, but also how do we ensure that we don't have a system that favors a group or a class of people and exclude the others, right? So I I agree with that. We're gonna have to come up with some provisions that actually create equilibrium in the market space.
The next one I think you should consider also too is that the political party or assets of the Jamaican people are not and are not clubs, privately owned clubs by groups. Because if we don't address owning these political party where we, the people of Jamaica, fund these people in our interest, then private interests will own them and they will dictate what goes on here inside Jamaica. And we already lost our democracy to that already because we are no longer the owner of our democracy. It is private interests who own it. So if we don't address ownership of these political party that serves our interests, then we, no matter what we do in a constitution, it is not going to serve us. It is going to serve those that own the political elites.
Well, on the contrary, we are basically eliminating political parties with this constitution. Because what is the point of a political or of political parties when the goal is supposed to be serving the people?
Well, you see, one of the things, is that different people have different economic philosophy. And if you understand economics is a political philosophy. So based on it is a political philosophy, you will have different ideology comes up based on what they think would achieve the economic goal. And this is why, unless we are going to have a country where we just have, we say, we are not going to have any political party and we are going to focus on what's economically best, that we see that is practical and is working and use it. But for legitimacy in the Western world, I think we would have to use political party for the United Nations or for even these people to give us any legitimacy in doing business amongst them. So we have to consider that.
Yeah, man. Trust me, that is certainly considered prior to even drafting this. So, when you call what they require is a political authority or a political body. It doesn't have to be a party. So let me give you an example. When we talk about economics, we have different aspects of economics, right? Local economics is geographic based. When we talk about international economics, now we start getting into the politics of nations trading with nations, nations interacting with nations, and so forth, right? So we have different aspects of how economics would work home and abroad. Now, when we talk about the political aspect of things, right? Local politics, that seems to always have been a problem in every single country. The only time a country start having peace is when they start having the people having more authority over what government does. Point blank. Once we have a set of people that can make laws and they are immune to those laws, which is what is happening in Parliament right now, the Constitution itself gives them immunity. They can't go to jail for anything when they write or say in a Parliament. That's why they can cuss out each other and write up whatever they want. Now, if we have a system where everybody is accountable to we the people, then if we not authorize it, then it can't happen. And that is exactly what this Constitution aims to do.
So how the political system that you are putting forward, or the system of governance where the people has the right to select their leader, how would we do that?
By voting. The same voting process, except we remove representation. We would take away the representative part of government type thing. Meaning, if we see someone who is fit and able and competent to rule to manage a role, a public office, we would vote in that individual, right? So direct voting, that individual would go
Would
into
it
power.
be like a consensus type of election where people would put up themselves? We would elect the best
Yes.
people to lead us, and from that body, then they would pick who is going to lead the body and stuff like that.
Yes, and it would be on multiple levels. So every single level where we have a public office, we have a vote them in directly, not by some local representative and them a vote on our behalf. No, we directly vote for every single thing.
But you see, that is kind of scary also too. You got to be very careful because
Oh,
some of the times when it comes on to that, it's almost like having a pilot and a doctor applying to fly the plane to New York, and the
no,
doctor comes with candy. And the
yeah,
people and vote for the person who can. We have to be very careful because most of these people are not educated and
right,
knowledgeable to
right.
the policies and how government operate and how nation develop, and they most of the time vote for their feelings and based on who is more taller, who more likable, who talk the best. And so we have to be very careful when it comes on to giving people that are not knowledgeable of nation development and policies the right to make these decisions.
Absolutely. And that contingency has also already been included, which means that they have to have the qualification to even run for office, to even be
No,
considered. They have
yeah,
to have,
the thing is, the people that are voting for them, we have to be careful of the people that are voting for them as to
oh,
what are they really voting for, because we have this is the problem we are facing right here in Jamaica now. A lot of people are voting for their tribe. A lot of people are voting based on their feelings, their likings. They
no,
have no knowledge of nation development. They don't
no.
understand economics.
Well, I would disagree a little bit with that in the sense that we are given options to choose from. And everybody run, and everybody who is qualified and who could do a good job is not all of them who are visible to the people. So
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. So what you would be saying that everybody that is put up is qualified for the job. So even if you
right,
choose one or the other, you still choose someone that is qualified.
absolutely. And let me give you an example, right? Let's use just a parish as a basic example here. In the parish, we would have qualified people who are dedicated, to public service, right? They would have to have knowledge of the Constitution. They would have to pass, certain certification requirements. They would have to have their qualifications already, and they would have to have taken an oath only to the people. Now, today, we don't have that.
I understand. I
So,
understand your, I also understand your theory. It's as if I'm going into surgery and I have two qualified surgeons. I have to choose from which surgeon is going to do the operation. But whatever surgeon I choose from, I am going to get the result. Maybe I don't
right,
pick the best, but I pick a qualified surgeon still to give me that operation. Yeah.
right.
So I understand it. I understand the system that you are putting forward. But how do we certify that who is putting themselves forward? Because at the same time, we are dealing with human beings with mind and thinking. So we
Mhm.
would have to put measures in place to hold them accountable, even after even although we know they are qualified, to
Yeah,
hold
man.
them in place.
Yeah, man. Those, all of those things were preconceived, right? Because we already see the problems we have,
Yeah.
So we have to create countermeasures to ensure that it is fair across the board, and anyone who step out of line, it should not be. For example, if we have an issue with someone who is in public office, in many cases we can't just get them out. They're sitting there until their time is up. And then voting comes around because, I mean, technically there is a way, but people are not going to come together to do that because they don't even know they have that option, right? So first you would need education and all them something there before people even realize that this was an option over here. So up front, we would already have those things ingrained in the Constitution where if someone misbehaves or they're violating provisions or they're not doing their job properly, all we need is just a few people to file grievances. And let us back up here. Let us back up a second. And the first thing we would implement is what's called a national record system that is public. So each aspect of government would have a specific part of the record system that they can write to, right? Meaning they can create records, but they cannot modify anything and they cannot delete anything. So even if they make a mistake, they have to create another record to show the correction. So we see the error and we see the new correction that was made, right? So when we have a public record system, any qualification on them something there is a quick thing for anybody. Just go look it up and go see who this individual is, what their qualifications are, etc., etc.
You see, with your system, understanding just basically what you're saying, with your system, the Constitution, say a breakdown of a bill, a charter of rights, would
Everything.
have to be taught in school.
Yes.
Because this would have to be compulsory that
It is.
taught in school, so that the people who are making decision based on selecting people have an understanding of what it is that they must be looking for from those people.
Absolutely. And that is ingrained in it as well.
Because you see, one of the thing, one of the big problem that we are really facing in this country is the lack of knowledge of knowing what the system is and what the system's supposed to do. Because a lot of people don't understand, and I know you would understand that violating the Constitution as a public servant, the Governor General has the right to withhold your pension. But this is not being told to the Jamaican people. And the Jamaican people don't see, because these are supposed to be things the Jamaican people know where they can get redress. I think the people lacking of understanding of how to get redress just throw up their hands in the sky and just say, yo, I saw things set, I saw things happen. So what you're saying, that teaching these things in school to make it compulsory, at least the Jamaican people would know where to get redress.
Absolutely.
And that is very important.
Yes, because if we don't have education, then it is going to be ignorance all over again.
Yeah.
And there is no way we can have a balanced or a just society where ignorance is ruling most people. So we have to start with, the schooling. We also have to start with uniform access. For example, if we have a single body of law and we make books and publications of that one body of law that is accessible to everyone, that would make things a whole lot easier for people to say, something, me want to look on that section because this section applies to me. And these sections are not very long. No section is, I don't think there's any section more than 20 pages, right? If that much. So if you're looking at a section, it is not like what we have now, where we have a single act of parliament going 600 and something pages, for one foolishness.
You know why it is like this though? Because they make law a business.
Right.
And in order to benefit from the business, you have to exclude people from it. So they seek people that has the knowledge of it and pay them to get access to it. Yeah?
Right.
So making law a business is really why they have so much different laws on the books where people are confused and cannot comprehend what it is that's supposed to apply to them in our society that they are a part of.
Right. All right, so I bring up two more people onto the panel. Did you want to add to the discussion? All right, look at them already. I'm going to mute them for now. So, Beck, you wanted to add something? All right. Yes. So, these aspects of the Constitution are not only important, but it is actually required if we're going to talk about educating our populace and making sure that we have educated people who know exactly what they're doing, why they're voting, why they're being included in decision making, why it is important that they know exactly what is affecting their economy. Because the other thing that is ingrained in the Constitution is that everyone would start becoming a shareholder. Once you're a native, you will start becoming a shareholder of society. So if something...
Just a minute, just a stick a pin. You see that word that you say, everyone becomes a shareholder? That is one of the biggest things that is missing from Jamaica,
Right.
A lot of people feel like they are renters and some people feel like they are owners. Yeah? Because there should be no way people generation upon generation living in a certain condition in Jamaica when we have a constitution that says fairness for all. So the constitution is really a sham that we have here practicing. It is not fairness for all. And we the people need, you see, we were given something when we were less knowledgeable as the masses. The masses wasn't knowledgeable to the way we are at this point. And it's time for us to go back to the table with a more knowledgeable masses and go ask something different that could be serving each and every one. Because there should be no way we have pockets, we have squatters, we have people with a constitution that's supposed to give them a certain rights here, but that rights is denied, and government don't have an high standard and a high obligation to meet certain standard to lift them out of this situation. We are in a terrible spot with this constitution.
Well, I was discussing this earlier. We don't actually have a constitution right now. What we have is what's called a constitutional framework. And that is why it doesn't have any teeth whatsoever. There are no penalties listed. There are no specific barriers for them to not do certain things. So, all the decision making flows to Parliament and the courts. And when you have something like that, the people are, as we can see, we start suffering. They start creating all sorts of different things that we are held accountable to when we are not supposed to. But in truth and in fact, it is because we don't know. We don't even know where to look. We don't know who are we going to complain to.
Well, the framework that you talk about, it was just a document to transfer from one elite to another set of elites. From the old British elites to the new, to the people in that had privilege under the colonial establishment. It was just a document for transfer of power to them, to the local people in that had privilege under the British elites. It wasn't about the masses of people. It was never about us, And we need to go back to the table. That is why this constitutional reform is nothing more than a joke, because if you don't have a document that is giving the people the power to hold the person that served them accountable, it's rubbish. It's rubbish. It's rubbish.
Right. Exactly. Because ultimately, if you don't have that, then what happens is the people become cattle to the slaughter. Because there is no reason. We don't have, a matter of fact, the very basic of foundation is the police force. right? They are supposed to maintain order, and we don't have control over them. They don't answer to us. So
In no shape, in no way, shape, or form do these people. You see, all right. I elect the government in office. There's a different body that elect the police commissioner.
right,
So who I elect as a democratic, I elect somebody democratically. Yeah, just we use terms. Yeah, and the person that I elect, I cannot hold that person accountable for the person that is in charge of the police force because it's an unelected body elect that person. So what we are seeing here is in a country where we elect people to do things, but an unelected body elect people to govern over us at the same time. This cannot be something that people that are reasoning, people that understand accountability, really accept. This is not something that can move a people forward. This is not something that will work. This is just something that is there to preserve the transfer of power from the British elites to the local elites.
well, it not even transferring anything really, because really and truly, it is still the same power. So while it may publicly look like something else, it is still the same thing because the so-called Commonwealth was created by the British Crown. And when they
What I mean was that the extractors used to directly come from Britain. Now the
right,
extractors are amongst us ourselves, where they
right,
extract and their houses are in Miami, their wealth are in trust overseas, and all these things leave Jamaica. So the new extractors are these brown light-skinned people, the families that they generally talk about and all these type of people. The power it was transferred from the British to these people who are now agents of the government in America, Washington Consensus and the CIA agent that keeps the order here in Jamaica. That's basically what it is.
gotcha. Well, I try to stay away from those topics really
It's
because
just reality. You got to speak reality. Reality. You see, if you don't
right,
speak the facts, if you understand how power operates, and you don't
right.
speak of how power operates, then you are not giving the solution to find the answers to demolish what is really going on. This is how power operates now.
Right, but here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Right? All right. Let us presume that we comprehend the power structure, all right? By talking about it or by exposing it, that will not change anything.
We have to expose it with ideas, and like how you are coming with the ideas, we have to let the people understand why we are bringing something new. Why is it that I am giving you something different from what you are already have? Because some of the time changes are hard to make without understanding why is it that you must make the change. So you have
Right.
to give people a vision of something different from what they have and let them understand what they have. What is it that they are giving up?
Absolutely. And that is why the provisions are there. But all right. You see, the thing is, when we talk about the power dynamic and how government is currently functioning and giving people insight on what exactly it is in front of them, that not necessarily going to change their mind or even garner their interest. If they are not benefiting, we know this in much of society. If someone is not directly benefiting from something, they will hear, but then now listen. Them I go hear, them I go think about, I don't know if me can make an extra 50 grand next week, or make an extra 20 grand. Like, them not think any kind of philosophical or any kind of political or any kind of structural type of thinking. It is all the way down to economics, whether or not they can make some more money, to work towards this or to fill whatever gap they are working on. So, instead of coming up to this high level and try to bring everybody up to this level where they know they are operating at this level where they know exactly what's going on and so forth. Because it is not just explaining, it is also proving, providing the documentary proof. And even when you do that, because again, you have to recognize that what you are suggesting for anyone to do, it requires an elevation in not only comprehension, but it might require new knowledge. And we know that that is a creation of neurons, basically upgrading the mind. I know from experience that is a fruitless endeavor on a mass scale. We have to first identify benefits. How is somebody going to benefit from this? And that is where we're going to start. But for now, it is just for those on the intellectual level who are able to input and see the benefit of what we're doing here and add, suggest so that we can formulate and culminate a better infrastructure document so that when the time comes and we are to present something like this publicly or more widely, we can simply outline the benefits and show the different things that would change rather than telling people you need to be more intelligent and come up to this standard. No,
I'm gonna tell you something where I see where a broad consensus most of the time will never be met
okay.
because of just some of the things that you have said, where we would have to need new knowledge, yeah, and based on the ignorance within our society of understanding how nation develop and these type of things. I think one of the things that really most of the time that works to really create these type of change, which most of the time changes comes from not basically the bottom, but start from the top and change, becoming ignite the bottom, is that we would have to infiltrate organization here in Jamaica that has a certain leverage to make certain change, to force the people within certain structures to accept the changes that we are making, rather than to try to sell a new philosophy, as you would say, new ideas, where it would take a new set of thinking, and everybody is not willing to take this step to get this new set of thinking. So we'd have to infiltrate groups, just almost like what a Donald Trump would do, infiltrate the Republican Party and create its own division within it. Yeah? These are ways that you find leaders that create change. They infiltrate groups and make themselves a part of it, and then create within that group structures that they almost take it over and start making the change. We'd have to think along this type of level, rather than say we are selling something to the broader market or broader public, where most of these people, as you would rightly say, would need a new way of thinking, a new knowledge.
Oh, possibly. There are different ways to achieve goals, but we're not at that level yet. So I'm not gonna jump the gun and say yeah or nay, but I certainly am not looking in any political direction initially.
Mm-hmm.
If that support comes, so be it. But that is as far as that goes, because when we talk about political parties and stuff like that, those things fall under current government structure, right? Political parties are not independent of the government. They still fall under the regulatory framework. So, again, we're not there yet, but those
So
things are definitely considered.
suppose I tell you I have a group for you to target.
I'm listening.
The diaspora.
Okay.
You see, these are people that really doesn't understand leverage. They don't understand. Most of them are trying to be a part of the old system that they live here with. They live here. But when you are somebody that study how power works, you look at groups like how the Jews in America organize themselves in groups to get to have leverage where government do things for them. And if a lot of these black people, dark-skinned people that leave Jamaica and be overseas would organize themselves to say, we are going to stand with the black people in Jamaica. We are going to be the leverage against the corporations that own the government in Jamaica. So we here, if the corporations in Jamaica is going to put up 5 million US, we are going to put up 6 or 10 million US. And it's whatever we want to put in structure to benefit those people that are disenfranchised, that I was a part of when I was migrating. We going to use that as our leverage to get the government to do whatever we want them to do, just like our corporations control them to do what. And that we create a leverage there, yeah, for the people them but most of them, they don't understand this power. They're just over there and they are being marketed to as the two political party marking it themselves to them. And they are just buying into it rather than understanding that we leave because of the system wasn't good. We must create a leverage to get you to do what we want, that it can benefit the people them down there, so, like it would benefit us, that we wouldn't have to leave.
Right. And, again, I hear the dynamic, but again, what you are describing is assimilating with the system. And when you do that, inevitably, you're going to come in conflict with the current system. Because when you talk about changing, or you're talking about infiltrating and all those different kind of things, you're still talking about the same exact system structure. Now, what we're doing here, when I say constitutional draft, it does not mean it is coming under anything that is currently there. So that is the first distinction that has to be made. But again, this is not something that is ready to be presented as what we're talking about. No, it is still in development, right? It is
Let me
still.
let me ask you something. You think a prime minister in Jamaica could say, based on the constitutional draft that you're putting in right at this moment, say, I love this constitutional draft, based on I am the prime minister. No, just listen, hypothetical. He said, I love this constitutional draft that you're putting in, and I am going to push forward for we to put forth a body, yeah, where within the next 6 or 10 years, this constitution will change and we will adopt a new constitution. You think a prime minister in Jamaica have that power to do such a thing?
No.
They don't have that power. So who would change the constitution if a prime minister is not the one who is going to lead the constitutional change?
You see, there are the questions you're asking. It is addressed in the draft itself. I know I've been saying that, right? And it sounds like I am marketing the draft. But again, the current structure that everyone is used to, it would, under this constitution, it would be eliminated. So the prime minister would not necessarily agree to something like this, because from his current philosophy of what he's been describing, he wants to be king or monarch or president, right?
No, but we are using hypothetical, because there is
Well,
no.
hold on.
Yeah.
Even hypothetical, he would not be able to like, it would not benefit him. Let's just put it that way.
But
So no,
what
he would not accept it.
all right. It's not a matter of saying, I'm saying, okay, how do we get this constitution this draft that you are putting forward? How would we get it to have the ears of the Jamaican people, or the ears of whosoever is in power to make the change?
Well, that when that time comes in the coming months, then that would be presented. But for now, It would be premature to have that discussion right now. Right now, the focus needs to be the inclusion of making it is almost we are sitting here because we are all creators, right? If we come together and we put our minds together, just like I made the suggestions earlier, and others make suggestions, and I write them down, or people submit them online, and then we would find a way to neutrally implement these things so that we create fairness in society and in the justice system and in the government system, right? So these stages have to be completed first. What you are asking is basically what would allow such a system to go into effect, and also what would the system look like if not political parties and if not being run by a similar structure. And again, those are premature questions because the draft is not completed yet. We have not completed some other essential sections that we've been discussing and so forth. And also, if this is done too prematurely where we start discussing information way ahead of time, we don't want to jeopardize the implementation stage.
All right, let me ask you this. Because you know, and I know you know, human beings operate on incentives. So I'm saying, I am thinking my incentive to think and contribute would be that there is a possibility of what I am contributing would be in action because give me the incentive to think because I have the possibility of knowing that what I am thinking about is not just something to just frivolously think and put on paper without knowing that there is a possibility of an operational effect. You
Right.
think I should even have an idea as to how something is going to go in effect to give me the incentive to think?
Well, again, it comes down to one's own personal philosophy. Because not only do we have the draft sessions like you see here, this is the first time I've seen you on the live, but we have had about 19 to 20 draft sessions so far where those on the lives they can tell you, we have been working diligently at this, and we have put certain things in place thus far, and we have put in a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't something that was, serious enough where we have put in this time and we had a reasonable expectation that something like this could succeed, then we would not even embark on the journey, right? So again, for those who are looking for, the full roadmap or the full implementation plan, you definitely will not get it right now. I'm not telling anybody to have faith and to just no say this and no say no. If you see the value in what we're discussing and what we're implementing in the draft, because the draft is freely available on voiceofjamaica.com. Right? So everyone, even those who may oppose it, those who don't like what's in it, you still have access to it. Everybody does. So, it is up to those who find it necessary or useful. They have access to it. They can look at the sections. They can see if they want to add anything or they just want to, man, this is a foolishness. Me not look on this. Everybody has a choice. But when the time comes where we are done, we are complete, we are now going to start moving to other stages of making it more publicly visible in the public's eye, then that's when some of those decisions to reveal what exactly we would be doing, to possibly move it forward, that's when, we would reveal that. But at this stage where we're currently developing the draft same way, I don't think it is appropriate for us to, disclose that right now.
I will respectfully respect your decision, and I will definitely whatever I can contribute by thinking about Jamaica in a more equal and fair. I don't really equal. There is nothing really equal when it comes on to human being, but in a fair way, I will definitely think about it and contribute my contribution and wait for the time to come to hear the implementation stage because that's where the kettle, meets the fire. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, man. And definitely thank you for, the insight and, sharing your opinions and all of that, and also the input
Yeah.
on what you think should be included, and definitely going to be crafting around that and see how we can put together something that is more uniform rather than something that is class based or monetary based.
Yeah, definitely. We don't. That is what is that you see. That is what is really holding us back, you know.
Right.
And the thing that you have said, as I told you, where we need ownership. People, too much people in Jamaica feel like they're renting a space in Jamaica than being a owner of Jamaica. And it's almost like someone living in a house, paying rent to live in a house, rather than someone owning a house. Yeah, it's a total different feelings. And
Right.
that whole feeling like that, living in a place where fairness supposed to be a part of what really give mobility, upward mobility. Yeah, we must always think of upward mobility. Too much. You see, we have never done a study here in Jamaica to find out how many generations are from 1962 are in the conditions that they are in and not moving in an upward mobility way. Yeah? How much generation does it take to do that in Jamaica? And that is something we really have to address. Nice sharing the discussion with you. Nice talking to you and stuff. Yeah?
Yeah, man.
And we will contribute. Blessings.
Absolutely. Big up yourself again. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, bless.
Cool. And just to just to add to the discussion that was just had regarding the possible benefits of those who want to contribute, those who may see the value in what exactly we're doing. Again, the constitutional draft is there. It is not hidden. It is not something that is being written in the dark, etc., etc. However, again, much of what we discussed is something that we have already gone over, but just to cover an incentive that came to mind, and I've included it as well, is the protection of our landscape, the protection of our lands, and the protection of our economy. And I'm going to show you a section that was updated to reflect some of those ideologies of keeping the native population protected and not susceptible to external injection and rule, right? So let us look at this section on citizenship, right? So citizenship is at 151. 151. What is this? Land title, Immigration and Border Patrol. So this is a section for those who were just listening. This is an upgraded section or an updated section that includes some protection for citizenship and also for natives, right? Because we all know that an individual from a foreign country or individuals from a foreign country can just come and buy out Jamaica, can buy out everything or every important thing, and we can do nothing about it, right? As long as it is for sale, an independent and third party can come in and just buy everything, because we don't even have the economic power financially to stop it as a people, right? If the government say, okay, fine, they can clear out a section of, wherever, and they can offer it for sale. All right, so let us go over this section so you can hear what I'm talking about. Introduction. There shall be established a citizenship authority with primary purpose of processing and handling citizenship and related matters affecting immigration and travel of citizens and visitors. Citizenship by birth. A person is a citizen of Jamaica if born within the island or born to at least one citizen of Jamaica, proven by paternity. Right? So now, just because you may think you have a parent and you don't know if you're a jacket, we should ensure that anybody who claims to be a citizen, it is proven by paternity, right? If you come to Jamaica, one can claim that. Why Jamaica with a YKA instead of a AICA? It is because we don't want to infringe on the current copyright. That is why. Citizenship by descent. A person born outside Jamaica is a citizen if at least one parent is a citizen and proven by paternity, right? So again, citizenship by birth is also similar to citizenship by descent. You prove it by paternity. Citizenship by naturalization. A person may become a citizen if lawfully residing in Jamaica for a continuous period of 10 years, 10 or more years, right? So we set this at a threshold where it is not an easy task to just come to Jamaica for a couple of years and you're a citizenship and you're a citizen. You have to be here for a longer period of time. 2, demonstrating knowledge of the Constitution, the language, which would be Patois and English, right? 3, showing commitment to the laws of Jamaica with no criminal record. So you need to have a full 10 years with no criminal record, right? 4, naturalized citizens shall not own land directly. So even though you're a citizen, you can come, you can work, you can live, you can rent, you can do all of that. You cannot own land, right? So this way, you cannot come and buy land and have it in your name or in the name of a corporation, right? So this would protect the natives from foreign ownership of land and exploiting different industries and so forth, right? Naturalization must be recorded and publicly documented. Remember, we talk about our public record system. This way, anyone can check someone's naturalization status, your citizenship status, your education status. These are not private information, right? These are credentials. So this is not something you can claim privacy on. Anything affecting the public should be public. Dual citizenship. Dual citizenship is permitted. A citizen of Jamaica must not act against the interests or security of Jamaica. So we were having a discussion previously, right? Dual citizenship. You cannot exercise Jamaican interests really outside of Jamaica, right? Citizenship is usually effective within the land that you are in. So if you are visiting another country, you can't really exercise all the rights as a citizen of Jamaica in that country. It is when you come back to Jamaica, that's when you have all of those rights and freedoms. If you visit somewhere else, you have to abide by their rules, right? So, loss of citizenship. Citizenship may be revoked only if obtained through fraud or the person commit acts against the sovereignty or security of Jamaica. All right, so again, if you do certain things, right, like treason, do certain things against public order and things like that continuously, you can lose your citizenship. Revocation must be determined by a court and be supported by clear evidence, right? Action now, JA. Yeah, man. Thank you. Lawful. Always. Voluntary renunciation of citizenship or expatriation is permitted as a natural choice of all citizens. Such act shall be completed by doing all of the following. Right? A handwritten affidavit of intent to relinquish citizenship. Right? So if you really don't want to be a Jamaican anymore, right? Here are the steps that you would have to go through. You have to handwrite an affidavit unless it's impossible for you to write by hand, right? A typed affidavit will suffice if you can't write with your hand. 2, a certification that no property or belongings of a permanent nature remains in the declarant's possession or name. So if you have a house, a car, donkey, animals, whatever, everything where you have to get rid of it before you can renounce your citizenship, right? 3, if marriage, or it should be if married to a citizen was valid at the time of the declaration, such marriage must be dissolved prior to the petition. So, yes, this document is available on voiceofjamaica.com, and you can click on the first post, and that is where the document is located. So if you're married to someone, you would have to be divorced before you can submit this petition. There is also a fee of 1,000 US dollars or equivalent, signifying good faith and serious intent to complete such a significant act. You see, there are, even in the US, you can expatriate or you can relinquish your citizenship, right? And it is a similar process you have to go through, right? Very extensive. Once all of the above has been submitted to the Island Citizenship Authority, the citizenship record shall be modified to show this change, and the passport shall be set to expire in 30 days to allow for any final removal steps by the applicant. So, again, if you are relinquishing citizenship, it is expected that you will be leaving the island, because obviously you don't want to have any ties to the country. So it is most likely appropriate that you are going to have somewhere that you're going. Or if you're going to be a visitor, then you would have to make arrangements for that, right? So not only do we have the provisions to protect the natives, but if you don't want to be a part of the population anymore, there is a process for that, right? The right of citizens. Citizens have the right to vote and participate in governance, reside and move freely within Jamaica, access public services, own and dispose of land, access all public places in and around the island except for restricted areas, and protection under the Constitution. Now, again, you have to be a natural born citizen to be able to own land because of the specific provisions under citizenship. But if you are not a born citizen under this constitution, you would not be able to retain or own land as a right. Duties of citizens. Citizens shall obey the laws of Jamaica, respect the rights of others, contribute to society where able, and participate in national decision making. Right? As we were just discussing not too long ago, we as a people have to take the mantle on participating in national decision making. If we have big projects coming up, we should be voting on those projects and what take priority. What if a child add the names of their parents to the land title? They would not be able to. They would have to put it in either a statutory trust or a statutory vehicle that is governed by the laws of Jamaica in order to be able to take it out of their name or sell it or transfer it to some other native, but you would not be able to transfer it to your parents. All of those transactions regarding land would be limited to natural born citizens. Non-citizens may temporarily reside, work, or engage in lawful activity, subject to law. Non-citizens shall not vote nor hold positions of national authority nor public office. Right? So you can't run for office, you can't do anything as a public official if you are not a citizen. Right? Or a natural born citizen, to be specific. Equal protection. All persons within Jamaica, whether a citizen or not, are entitled to protection of life, protection from harm, fair and equal treatment under the law. Registration of status. Citizenship status must be recorded in a national registry. Records must be accurate, accessible for verification, and protected from misuse. A simple read-only status inquiry by passport number showing citizen or non-citizen shall be made publicly available. Right? So anybody can look up your passport number and see whether or not you're a citizen. You should not need this extensive documentation about your birth certificate, your this your number, your that the ID, your this your address, and all of that is unnecessary. All of that would be eliminated. It is not necessary. Proof of citizenship. Citizenship shall be proven through birth record, citizenship registration, or lawful documentation. Right? Again, the passport is the easiest way to do that. Can a foreigner gain citizenship and become a JP? No. No. Anyone not a natural born citizen cannot hold public office. Mikhail says, not everyone have a passport. Again, this is not something that is currently in place. This is what is contemplated under the constitutional draft. Right? A passport shall not be the sole document used to prove citizenship, which is what you were just talking about, right? A passport shall not be the sole document used to prove citizenship. However, public office may not be exercised without a Jamaican passport. A foreign passport may be used after citizenship verification and registration, as long as its language is translated to English. Refugees, intruders, and unannounced visitors. Any person arriving on the island unaccounted for and unannounced by documentation record shall be deemed a refugee, intruder, and or unannounced visitor. Right? If no weapons or harmful conduct is detected, such visitor shall be entitled to protection of life, protection from harm, fair and equal treatment under the law while being processed by the Jamaica Defense Force. Any visitor or intruder who arrives on the island and found with weapons or act with intent to harm shall face criminal penalties, after which, if identified, shall be returned to the country or location of departure. If no departure location can be found, or if return refused, such individual shall remain confined and must continue to be productive in Jamaica as a prisoner. A return to the seas is open to voluntary departure if so chosen by such prisoner. Right? So if someone, tries to unlawfully enter Jamaica, and let's say they are a fugitive of some sort from some other place, right? They have the opportunity to leave Jamaica, they don't have to be confined or locked up. They can go about their business. They just can't stay and walk around freely and try to work and do all of that, right? We're not going to harbor any kind of criminal element. So they can voluntarily decide to return back to the sea and find somewhere else to go. But if they want to remain here, they would remain under criminal order. So just want to make sure it's not possible in our new constitution. Right. So the principle here is citizenship in Jamaica is an honorable and valuable national privilege. These principles establish belonging to the nation, participation in governance, responsibility to our society, responsibility to uphold the Constitution. Right? So when we talk about, the benefit of being a native, the benefit of, having lineage in Jamaica and all of that, it has to be something concrete and something that people can look forward to as a nation. Now, we have not discussed this previously, which, we can't really get into that conversation right now, maybe on the next live. But we're going to be discussing the difference between a nation and a country. And many people think they are the same because they are often mentioned synonymously or within the same breath, but they are very different. And we're going to be having, a section that is dedicated to distinguishing Jamaica as a nation and Jamaica as a country, right? And how the different roles of those two different elements, take hold within society and on the international platform, right? So we talked about immigration and border patrol before. So I just wanted to touch on citizenship because that was a concern earlier. What section is this? Okay, so Apex Court, Equity Procedure Manual. So there is a new addition that was talked about on the previous live. That is office, family court. There's this elder care. So we have a lot of sections and protections in this constitution, right? So now we now have an added section for road safety, commercial transport, and private travel regulation, right? And this is similar to what we currently know as the Road Traffic Act and the Road Traffic Regulations, right? So we're going to go through this one. All right, we have someone that wants to come up. I'm going to take, I don't know if it's a question or if it's something they want to add. So, Lato Pinch. Lato
Yes.
Pinch, lawful.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask you this question. How I've been listening to you, and I hear you say that nobody who is not a citizen born in Jamaica cannot hold public offices. And there's a lot of MP in the JLP party that is not born in Jamaica and they hold MP offices. So is that wrong or is that right? I can name few of them.
Well, that currently, in the current system that appears to be allowed, but under this new constitutional draft, it would not be possible.
So when this constitutional draft was made, yesterday, last week, last month?
No, this is not something from Parliament. This is something that is being created by we the people.
Is a new thing created now?
It is being created
Or
by we the people.
It don't implement as yet?
No.
Okay, because when you hear you reading there, I thought these things is the law of Jamaica, and I'm wondering how are you reading the law of Jamaica, and all what you're reading there sound very interesting, but it still has a lot of flaws in it. And I want to go on the next point, asking you about the citizen of Jamaica, where you say that. Are you telling me that nobody from abroad can come to Jamaica and buy property today and own it?
No, that's what I am saying. What we are doing here is completely separate from what you are used to as Jamaican law.
Okay, so there's a new law coming up now. Are you guys want to implement a new thing?
This is something that is going to be proposed as the new replacement of what we call law in Jamaica.
Okay. Oh, I just start to understand what you're saying now.
Right. So as we go along, if you do find something interesting that you may want to include or you find maybe an issue,
Yeah.
you can make a suggestion, right? And we can work to implement that neutrally.
Okay. I just understand what you're saying now, sir.
Yeah, man.
So you can continue. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Big up yourself. Thank you.
You too, my brother.
So here we have, what we commonly would call something similar to a road traffic act or regulation, right? So this is the road safety, commercial transport, and private regulation. So this article establishes a limited road safety system for public safety, accountability in commercial transportation, safe movement on public roads, and prevention of abuse by enforcement authorities. Road regulation shall not be used to create general police powers over the people. Right? Mr. Man says, I understand this as a new constitution being designed that benefits we the people. That's correct. Scope. This article applies to commercial transportation enterprises, owner-operators, for-hire drivers, public service vehicles, and private travelers only as to limited basic road safety and certification. Right? Private travel shall not be treated as criminal conduct unless intentional harm, reckless endangerment, or crime is proven. Road Regulation Force. A road regulation force, also called the RRF, is hereby established. The RRF shall regulate only commercial transport registration, road safety compliance, commercial driver certification, traffic camera violations, and personally witnessed violation of any car or vehicle. The RRF shall not investigate crimes, conduct random stops, act as a general police force, or search persons or property without lawful court authority. Right? So here we are creating a completely separate body to do road regulation, right? Because things having to do with road regulation are actually administrative in nature. They are not generally criminal matters. So, we don't need to be involving the criminal enforcement mechanism of the state to regulate road matters, right? Because it is simply, just making sure that there is safety being administered on the road, right? The Jamaica Peace Force. Now, this was called something else earlier, so we changed it to the Jamaica Peace Force, the JPF limitation. The Jamaica Peace Force shall not enforce ordinary road regulation. The JPF involvement is permitted only where a crime is reported, the report contains complete identifying information, investigation is based on evidence. Road violations alone shall not create criminal jurisdiction nor authority for the JPF. Registration for commercial transport. Commercial transportation enterprises and commercial drivers shall be registered for accountability and public safety. Registration shall identify the operator, the vehicle, the service type, insurance fund participation. Stay tuned. We're going to hear about this interesting part, the insurance fund participation. Registration shall not be used to restrict lawful work except for proven non-compliance. National Road Insurance Fund. A National Road Insurance Fund is hereby established. The fund shall cover regulated commercial transport activity. Coverage shall apply to injury, property damage, loss caused by regulated commercial road activity. Right? So basically, anyways, let us go down a little bit more before I explain. Commercial operators shall contribute to the fund as defined by law. Fund records shall be public, accurate, and auditable. So instead of requiring people to get insurance, we would create a fund and everyone pays into the fund, right? When you have an accident, you are automatically covered for any injury, any property damage, or any loss, right? So that way, we don't have this exorbitant burden of paying every month, unlimited, with no end. We would simply have a fund where everyone benefits from it. If you get into an accident, as long as it was not intentional, right? Like, you were not drunk, you were not, trying to just run over somebody and things like that. If it is not intentional, then all of this is covered. But if it is found that you were negligent or you were not exercising caution, then you will be prosecuted criminally. It's that simple, right? So the fund would cover any accident-related matters, right? And all commercial operators would pay into the fund. Road rules. Road rules shall be limited to public safety. Speed limits shall be clearly posted for town roads, major parish roads, and highways. No person shall be penalized for a road rule that is not publicly posted, recorded, or accessible. Do you get back at the end if you never have any accidents when retired? No. Nope. That is, again, a part of the national fund, right? But it certainly would not be as much as anyone would typically pay for commercial insurance. And there's a limitation as well. If the fund is growing too large, then it would be basically paused. It would not be a simple ballooning fund with all these billions of dollars in there unless it is justified to show that you have this much accident and whatever else to and you need it to cover those stuff. Right, there's a cutoff. Exactly. Equipment safety standards. All owners of private cars and commercial vehicles shall maintain basic safety equipment including headlights, brake lights, turn signals, tires, brakes, mirrors, fixed vehicle front view camera. Now the front view cameras are for commercial vehicles, right? But obviously we know that it is very beneficial. If you have a private car, you should have a dash camera, right? I think there should be some benefits to persons who are compliant. We're going to get to that. 2, complete failure of essential safety equipment or part is a violation. So if you don't have both of your headlights, then that would be a violation of the road code. If you don't have no brake light, right? So it will have to be a complete failure of these things for you to actually be penalized with a fine or some kind of restriction. 3, partial equipment or part failure shall result in warning and repair period unless immediate danger is proven, right? So obviously, if you only have one light and you only have high beam on the one light, that is a danger, right? You have to get that fixed. So you would have a warning period to fix whatever issue it is that is detected, right? Section 9, warning system. A public record vehicular warning system shall be implemented and set into operation within 1 year of the establishment of this constitution. The record system serves to record all road violations and warnings, as well as penalty enforcement. Records shall be publicly available by website search. The RRF officer shall issue warnings and penalty violations personally witnessed. In regards to any road user, partial non-functioning safety equipment shall result in a record warning. The operator shall have 30 days to repair the issue after warning. The warning issued by the RRF officer shall state the defect observed, the date and time issued, deadline to repair, method or procedure for clearing the warning, and attach a still picture or video of the equipment failure or violation. No fine shall be issued for the same violation or warning during the repair period or grace period unless the vehicle creates immediate danger. All right? So here you have the warning system, and any violation again has to be related to public safety. Gross non-compliance. Gross non-compliance includes both headlights non-functioning, both brake lights non-functioning, complete brake failure, unsafe tires such as severely low threading, creating immediate danger, operation after deactivation of license. Now this is important. What can cause a deactivation of license? You might be asking. Gross non-compliance shall result in fine and immediate correction requirement. Gross non-compliance shall result in the driver or traveler directed by the RRF agent to bring the car in his presence to the nearest repair shop. If the car or vehicle is inoperable, it shall be towed to the nearest repair shop immediately. Repair verification. After repair, the operator shall notify the RRF by record number in the warning system. The RRF shall inspect and verify correction within 4 hours the same day or within 24 hours if the time reported is past 4 p.m. Upon verification, the warning shall be removed from the record with a picture or video of the completed repair fully functioning. Failure of the RRF to verify within the required time shall suspend penalty activation until review is complete. Right? So if the agent don't come out to verify that the repair is complete, then you cannot be penalized, right? Because it will already show that the agent assisted you to the repair shop, right? Fines and non-payment. Fines shall apply only to gross non-compliance or proven traffic camera violations. A fine unpaid after 60 days shall result in license number deactivation, suspension of commercial transport authority, denial of fuel service. Now, this is something that will enforce traffic violations, right? We don't need to send people to prison. You simply deny them fuel service. So all gas stations would be required to verify the license number in the public record system before serving gas, right? So if your license is deactivated for non-payment of the fine, you will not be able to get gas, right? The same thing with commercial transport. You'll be denied fuel service. So it is going to be in your best interest to make sure that any non-compliance is resolved as soon as possible. Penalties shall not apply unless notice and opportunity to contest were issued and served. All right? Traffic cameras. Traffic cameras shall be installed at all major intersections. Cameras shall record red light violations, unsafe intersection conduct, and reckless commercial operation. Camera records shall be preserved and reviewable for a minimum of 6 months. No penalty shall issue unless the recording clearly proves the violation. RRF traffic stops. RRF personnel shall stop a vehicle only where specific, visible, and recorded cause exists. Random stops are prohibited. A stop shall be lawful only if the cause is stated at first contact, the interaction is recorded entirely, the reason is documented. Failure to validate the stop renders the stop void. Body cameras. All RRF personnel shall wear active body cameras during interactions. Recording shall begin before contact and continue until the interaction ends. Failure to record creates a presumption of misconduct, mandatory penalty of official, and invalidates the action. Prohibition of random stops. Random stops by the JPF are unlawful. Any RRF personnel conducting random stops shall be subject to points penalty, suspension, and criminal prosecution where abuse is proven. RRF personnel accountability. Each unlawful stop, unsupported warning, or invalid enforcement action shall result in one personnel violation point. 3 personnel violation points shall result in automatic suspension, public review and investigation, and court proceeding for official misconduct. Records of personnel violations shall be public and permanent. I want to say the gas station one may be an issue. Why? Is that Chang want to hear this now? Angry Wolf, I soon bring it up. Road duties course. All drivers and travelers shall complete a 2-day road duties course. The course shall teach road duties, safe travel practices, penalties for non-compliance, consequences for reckless conduct. Upon completion, a certificate and permit shall be issued physically and electronically. National Road and Safety Institute. A National Road and Safety Institute is hereby established and may be cited as the NRSI. New commercial drivers shall complete 14 days of instruction, final examination, driving test for the requested license type. Existing commercial drivers shall complete 2 days of instruction, final driving test. Private travelers shall complete required instruction and testing for new issuance or reinstatement. Right? So similar for personal and commercial. Non-interchangeable licenses. Licenses are non-interchangeable. A person shall operate only within the class of license issued. Commercial, public service, heavy transport, and private travel permits shall be separate. Fees and taxation. No fee shall be charged for private traveler courses, permits, or licenses. Commercial drivers shall contribute through a transport tax during the first year of commercial service, starting 60 days after license issuance. No additional licensing fee shall be charged unless approved by the people. Contesting violations. Any warning, fine, stop, or penalty may be challenged. The NRSI bears the burden to prove lawful authority, valid cause, proper recording evidence, compliance with procedure. Failure to prove these elements voids the action and penalty. Record system. All permits, licenses, warning, fines, repairs, stops, and penalties shall be recorded in a secure public record system. Records shall be accurate, reviewable, protected from alteration, and publicly available. False records are a violation of law. Reckless conduct. Reckless road conduct means operation creating clear and immediate risk of harm. Reckless conduct causing injury, death, or property damage shall be treated as harm under criminal law and referred to the Jamaica Peace Force for further investigation and possible prosecution. Ordinary non-compliance without harm shall remain regulatory unless gross danger is proven. And we have the principle here is the road regulation of Jamaica shall ensure public safety, commercial accountability, limited enforcement authority, no random stops, no police expansion through traffic law, recorded and reviewable action, and protection of travelers from abuse. Right? My name is says interference with commerce. Public safety takes precedence over commerce. Okay? So you have a clear, let us see, we have a clear 60 days from violation to resolve any matter. You're talking about the denial of fuel service, right? If we're talking about penalties that interfere with commercial activity, that is a basic tenet of commercial law, right? The authority always has the right to impose penalties. So one penalty can be the denial of fuel service. Why are you going to be able to ignore a violation, right? While everyone else is penalized. If you have some kind of public safety risk and you don't get that resolved, why should you remain on the road? You know, it is, I'm not going to say common sense, but it is a matter of public safety. Clear public safety. Right? Whatever the reason is, that must be resolved. If you're operating commercially, you're operating for a profit. So again, this is a uniform thing that, for example, if you have your brake lights don't work or your headlights don't work, I mean, come on. Many of these things are very simple to resolve. So a clear 60 days that you have not paid your fine, yeah. And again, this is a system where it doesn't introduce court. All of these are administrative. So if you choose not to comply, then, you know, it's up to you how you proceed. This is a very clear line of making sure that everyone is safe, everyone is operating under the same rules, and you don't have arbitrary decisions in a court of law regarding these simple matters. But if you feel that it is not adequate, you can certainly come up and we can discuss it. All right, Angry Wolf, you're up. Angry Wolf. Oh, so like they are banned. All right. If you request to come up, I know some of them are accidental, but if you request to come up, you have to be in a quiet place and you have to be ready. All right. So this is an equivalent to what we would today think of as a road traffic regulation or a road traffic act, right? But here we are completely separating the administrative portion from any kind of criminal enforcement, which is what we have today, a mixing of civil and criminal. So traffic matters should never fall into the realm of criminal. We should not be going to court for traffic matters unless it is proven that you intentionally are doing something to cause harm, right? So this would remain in the civil realm of things, right? Where you have basic punishment for, unattended violations, and you have a matter of fact here where we have the warning system, right? You have a clear opportunity without penalty to go and fix your problem. Right? So if you have a problem and you keep your car or your vehicle up to date, it is very unlikely that you will ever get a violation that you have to pay for. Right? Any paying that you're paying is literally to upkeep your car or your vehicle. So, you have more than enough opportunity here to maintain your car and ensure that everyone on the road is operating, at a minimal safety level. And if you end up with, for example, 2 complete lights out, obviously that's a public safety issue, right? And that's where violations come in. So, it has to be severe in order for you to get a violation. Otherwise, you get a warning and you go about your way. You have 30 days to fix it, right? So that is the latest addition. And that way, the insurance fund, right? So there are actually 2 insurance funds. One for commercial drivers, right? So those in commerce, they would participate in this insurance fund and everybody would be covered, right? So they don't have an issue with any kind of accidents and all of that claim process and all them something there. You go to the hospital, your vehicle or your car or your truck or whatever, that goes to the repair yard, everything done, and boom, you're good to go. You say 30 days is too long, it should take 48 to 72 hours. Well, we have to consider as well, when we put these things in place, we cannot be unreasonable with timing. If someone does not have the funds right away to get something done, right? We can't say just because someone else is able to do something, right? Maybe right away or maybe within 2 weeks or so, they should be able to complete whatever task. For example, if it's the start of the month and you just pay all of your bill them, right? You may not be able to complete a certain type of repair. But 30 days from now, you would have to decide whether you want to continue on the road or maybe whether you're going to pay a bill or eat out that day or that month. Cook at your yard and save your money. Right? So, we have to give a fair estimate and time frame for completion of duties, when we talk about things in legality. So that is why the 30 days is there. And again, that is only for small failures. If you have a complete failure of anything, it is towed right away. You don't even get time. You get the vehicle would be towed, or you would have to go directly to a repair shop, and it cannot leave until the repairs are complete. Right? So yeah. And this is going to be expanded, a little bit more, but not necessarily, a super extensive document, because we are not implementing no jail time and all them something there. Any kind of criminal matter is going to be decided by by the court and the evidence presented, right? So that is what we have currently for the draft. I'm going to start making some additional notes so that when we make further major changes in certain sections, we're going to review again. And again, don't worry about the spacing and all those different things right now, because the draft is still in motion. It does take a lot of work to put all of these things in place, but I am appreciative of the input and the dedication thus far for those who have shared their opinion, shared their insight on what they would like to see. And those suggestions from the live as well, I am also going to be implementing for next time so that we can review them and take a look at what exactly is now included in the draft after the changes are made. Okay. So we have some additional sections to add. So let us also talk about connecting matters, right? So let's get back to our current reality of things, right? So we're gonna talk about the charter. We're gonna talk about the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, right? And I'm going to share something interesting with you, right? Which one is this? So this is 13, 14, where is 14? Just past 14. Oh, that's a 3. I'm gonna show you something. Freedom of the person. All right, so this is, was this under 13? Yep, so it was under 13. Section 13, 3F, right? 13, 3F. All right, let me zoom it in so we can have a better look at this section here. Section 13, 3F of the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. It says, every person in Jamaica has the right to freedom of movement, that is to say, the right of every citizen of Jamaica to enter Jamaica and of every person lawfully in Jamaica to move around freely throughout Jamaica, to reside in any part of Jamaica and to leave Jamaica. The right is the right to equality before the law, right? Now, let me ask you a question. Does it specifically state by what means you are free to move around Jamaica? Does it state that you have the freedom of movement by donkey, or the freedom of movement by bicycle, the freedom of movement by boat? Does it restrict that freedom of movement to any specific mode of transportation or movement? Let me read it again. The right to freedom of movement, that is to say, the right of every citizen of Jamaica to enter Jamaica and of every person lawfully in Jamaica to move around freely throughout Jamaica, to reside in any part of Jamaica and to leave Jamaica. Where does it state that you have a specific type of movement, a specific type of freedom of movement that you can exercise under the Constitution and not others. Right, it doesn't even say how fast or how slow you can move. So a speeding ticket I got. So when we have any law or any regulation coming out of Parliament or any other governing body that creates legislations, and they say that they can stop you at any time to check your license. You see, when you start looking into the law, because the Constitution is the law. This is why the courts will always have to succumb. They have to admit that every challenge is measured against the Constitution. The challenge is not measured against the acts of Parliament. It is always, did you have a constitutional right to do this? Was a constitutional right violated? Because what? That is where our rights are protected. It is not what is allowed, It is whether or not what is allowed infringes or affects our rights. So, if our rights are affected by an operation of law, that is going to be unlawful. So when we are stopped to so-called random checks, when we are stopped for so-called checking the driver's license, when we are stopped to check to see if we have insurance and all those things, that is a restriction on our freedom of movement arbitrarily. So we got Parky want to come up. Parky, lawful. Alright, look like that was a fat finger. Alright, let's continue. So when we say we have the right to freedom of movement, the right to freedom of movement is not restricted. It is not defined as any specific thing that you should be doing. It is any movement, whether by your foot, donkey, bicycle, car, truck, van, SUV, sedan, Tida, Mark X, taxi, bus, anything. Any means that you feel you want to use to travel. That is the protected right. Nowhere here does it state that you need to register. Nowhere here does it state that you need to have insurance. Nowhere here does it state that unless you are interfering, a matter of fact, in the Constitution itself, it says everyone, as long as you are not violating or affecting anyone else's right, you don't have a problem. When we say the right to equality before the law, it means that everybody have the same rights that they can claim. And we talk about the rights already, that you have to claim your rights. It is not enough to know that they are listed in here as a protection. Your right and your protection are two different things. If your right is not activated, how can you get the protection? Except the government agents. Well, the government agents are not people. They don't have any rights. Right? So, when we talk about rights, you have to comprehend what that means. Your rights are not in the Constitution. It is only protections that are listed here, and it clearly states it. If you scroll down to any section, right? For example, due process. Let me see if we can Here is section 14. What does it say? Protection of the freedom of the person. Protection, right? Any sections where you have these protections, it is not a right it is giving you. It says protection of property rights. It is not the same thing as having a right. The right has to first exist before you can have a protection. And if you keep going down, you see the same thing again. Protection of right to due process. So these are not rights. There are no such thing as constitutional rights. You have constitutional right to do something. You have constitutional right to have access to something. But you don't have constitutional rights as a blanket right per se. You only have protections. You have protections that are afforded. And unfortunately, if you don't declare and activate and use those rights, you are at a great disadvantage, a severe disadvantage. Where is F? Oh, back up to section F, right? So when we talk about the right to freedom of movement, right? It is not just your right of movement is here. It is saying the right to. The right to. So freedom of movement exists long time. So here it is just recognizing and giving the protection of the right to freedom of movement. That is to say, every person lawfully in Jamaica shall be able to move freely throughout Jamaica and to reside in any part. Nothing here places a restriction that is currently being so-called trying to enforce and put into effect. So, if you are to challenge something like this, right, it would have to be proven that a crime existed. Why your right was interrupted when the police stop you. Because remember, a protection is to stop something from happening. A protection is not there after the fact. It's just like you have one steel toe shoes. So if you are working a construction and one block drop on the shoes, your toe will get crushed. But if your toe are going to get crushed first, what is the point of the steel shoes then? It don't make no sense. It is the same thing with a protection. The protection is there first. That is why they always say the right has been violated. Because someone looked past or someone did not respect the right in the first place. So that's how you have a violation. But the problem is, where a violation exists, there is no direct penalty in the charter. All we have is the listed protection, but nothing to do, nothing happens when the violation occurs. So this is why all of us end up in court. This is why all of these tickets end up in court. And when we get to court, we are faced with judicial discretion. Because there is no clear duty for the judges to follow certain rules. So now they are relying upon their own decision-making skills, their own expertise, their own history of decisions, their own common law. And just because you don't know what is taking place in the courtroom and you go in there and you're trying to explain yourself as best as you can and show say, no, I am not guilty. The problem is, nowhere in the Constitution does it state that you can plead not guilty. Apothecary, lawful, welcome. So when you have to go through the court system to enforce the protections that are offered in the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, and you don't know these basic things, you don't know how to assert the right, you don't know how to direct the court to examine the right and to examine the actions taken against the right, that is how they run over you. So when you know that you have the right to freedom of movement, the expectation here is where no restriction is placed, it is unrestricted. When it's a freedom of movement to move around Jamaica freely, it never say you need a license. It never say you need insurance. It never say you needed anything to exercise that right. And if public safety is going to be brought up to say, well, you need a license for public safety, you don't. You do not need a license to ensure that someone is safe to travel along the roadway. As long as you have passed the driving test, that is the evidence that is showing that you are now qualified to be on the road traveling left, right, and center. The license is just a piece of paper. It's a legal document. That does not prove anything. So even when the license is expired, your skill of traveling and operating a car, it does not suddenly disappear. Just because you renew the license, that does not renew your skills. How does that renew public safety? It does not. So it cannot be said that a license is what is ensuring public safety. How could somebody prove that? How does a driver's license ensure public safety? Let's say someone's license expire. Does their driving ability or their traveling ability or their operating ability suddenly get suspended or get affected because the license is no longer so-called valid? So if that is the case, where the skill remains and only the administrative authority expires, then how is that now a criminal matter for the police to administer? How? How does the police get involved when this is an administrative matter? Registration. How does registration change as it relates to an individual or a car? Does it change any actual physical characteristics of the car or the individual? So how can it be criminalized if registration or records in a system is not updated? How does that transform into something criminal? So just because I don't renew my license, or just because I don't renew my registration, or just because I don't do some administrative task, you're telling me that I am no longer fit to traverse and move around Jamaica freely? How does that amount to criminal activity? So when we look at legislations like the Road Traffic Act and regulations, right? And the enforcement of such, where the police is always going to tell you, we can't stop any car we want. We suspect that stolen goods may be in this car, or we got information that X, Y, and Z. But you, the individual, have no way of verifying such a report, right? How is that not a violation of the freedom of movement guaranteed in section 13.3f. These things, you see, because we the people don't have any hand in the decision-making process of these acts of parliament or these regulations, we have to take into account, when we look at, again, we're gonna go back to this section here, section 48, right? 47, 48. When we look at sections like section 48, right? And when the provisions state that Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Jamaica, nothing in here states that they can make any laws that affect the private rights of people. Nothing. And, we have this modern philosophy of public safety that basically the courts use to trump anything. In the interest of public safety, we have to ensure we know who is on the road and who have proper licensing and who have this and who have that. But you see, it is always how you argue your case, But when we look at provisions like these, and it is strictly talking about Jamaica as a country, it is not talking about Jamaica as a people. Nothing in here, apart from citizenship, talks about the people. Citizenship and the charter. Those are the only two sections that really relate to the people. And also, family matters. This section here, it's a section 48. So you have 48, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? And section 3 gives context as to why paragraph 1 does not apply to the people. You see, paragraph 1 says, subject to the provisions of this constitution, Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Jamaica. Right? And when you go to part 3, or paragraph 3, it says no civil or criminal proceedings may be instituted against any member of either house for words spoken before or written in a report to the house to which he is a member, or to a committee thereof, or to any joint committee of both houses, or by reason of any matter or thing brought by him therein by petition, bill, resolution, motion, or otherwise. So if you can't go to jail for this, and nobody can sue you for, that is what this means. No civil or criminal proceedings may be instituted against any member. So if none of them can go to jail, how can they make laws that do not affect them? That literally doesn't make any sense. So this would clearly mean, because as we go through 3, 4, and 5, right? This is all related to what they can do in the houses, in the two houses of Parliament, right? So this is strictly in relation to Parliament. It says, make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Jamaica. So this is for governmental policy. This doesn't have anything to do with making laws for people out the road. This don't have nothing to do with making acts that affect the private lives of people. Because 48 has to be read in context with all 5 paragraphs or all 5 sentences, because these are all run-on sentences. So it cannot be read just one by itself. If we read all of these, it simply has to do with parliament sessions, and parliament members. So the powers within Parliament, there is no way they can make a general act or law that affects the general population. It just doesn't make any sense for them to be able to do that. But, and again, we don't have any doctrine of separation of powers. None of that is encoded in law. So, when they write these acts of parliament now, the courts and the police are now being influenced by these acts of parliament because they are acting on them, calling them laws. If it was a law, why don't they write and say law, or they can say road traffic law, right? Road traffic regulation law. Why don't they say the judicature law, the public defender law? Why aren't they calling them laws if they are in fact laws? It don't make no sense for you to be calling it act of parliament and then you call it law. Why are you not using the term that you are claiming is the reference point for what you're doing? And you see, we the general population anyways, when we look at freedom of movement, there are no restrictions to freedom of movement. Just remember that. It is written down, the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedom, section 13.3f. 13.3f. Freedom of movement is unlimited. There are no restrictions within the Constitution for this thing. And the only possible restriction would be crime. That's it. If they want to talk about public safety, it has to be a crime that was committed. Just because someone writes something in an act of parliament, that does not make it a crime. That is absolutely ridiculous. Imagine registration of a car, and now you are being prosecuted in court, and if you don't pay the fine, you are subject to jail time. Where is the crime? It is ridiculous. There is no way it could ever meet the definition of a crime. The elements are just not there. So anyways, we are out of time. We are out of time today, but for those who would like to work on or to submit submissions for the constitutional draft, I'm going to show you once more. Go to voiceofjamaica.com. All right, see it there. You scroll down to new constitution, and from here you can download the drafts or you can submit suggestions using this submission box. Okay, so I encourage everyone to participate. So if you have something to add, definitely submit your suggestions, and we will continue again on Monday. All right, so that is how you get to the draft, and that is what we have for tonight. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Big up yourself. Lawful, always.